Chapter 554. No one expected that King Kulin's men would disguise themselves as palace maids and lie in ambush, then suddenly attack at this moment. In the blink of an eye, a white figure flew up and landed in front of Duguqing. Ugh! With a pu sound, the sharp tip of the knife pierced into his chest from his back. Blood immediately gushed out and instantly dyed his white clothes red. Young Master Yi. Lingfeng, big brother Lingfeng, Duguqing cried out involuntarily as she looked at the back of the man who was standing in front of her like a stone statue, firm and indestructible. I'm fine. He looked at Duguqing and curled his lips, but when he finished speaking, he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Just as the palace maid was about to pull out her blade to stab Chu Qingyan finished her off with a single strike. Yi Lingfeng couldn't stand properly and fell towards Duguqing. Duguqing subconsciously stretched out her hands to catch him, and the two of them fell to the ground. Duguqing held onto him, and when she saw that her hands were covered in blood, she immediately said anxiously, "Someone, call the imperial physician, the imperial physician." Yi Lingfeng looked at her panicked expression and a gratified smile appeared in his eyes. "Little Qing, I thought you didn't want to call my name and talk to me anymore. What nonsense are you saying at this time? Don't talk anymore. Save your energy and talk when you're better." Duguqing saw him spitting out mouthfuls of blood the moment he opened his mouth. She was so frightened that she didn't know what to do. "No, I'm afraid that if I don't say it now, I won't have another chance to say it in the future." Yi Lingfeng shook his head. His voice was very weak, as if he would stop breathing the next moment. Duguqing's tears fell immediately. "Big brother Lingfeng, I beg you, don't say it anymore. You're the only son of the Yi family in 3 generations. If you leave just like that, what will happen to the Yi family? Also, what will happen to me?" Yi Lingfeng held her hand and smiled reluctantly. "It's all right. My father is still young and can have another child with my mother." "What nonsense are you saying? It's not funny at all." Duguqing cried uncontrollably. Who would have thought that the person who was smiling at her just now would be lying in her arms in the blink of an eye, barely breathing? "Shaoqing, I'm sorry. I made you sad before, and I'm still like this now. It can be seen that I'm really not a good person." When Yi Lingfeng said this, he couldn't help but cough a few times. He didn't care about wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. He raised his other hand and struggled to wipe the tears from the corner of her eyes. Unfortunately, the tears were like a broken string of beads. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't wipe them all away. "Shaoqing, if I say that I regret it, will you give me another chance?" He looked into her eyes and smiled. "Yi Lingfeng, what right do you have to say that you don't want it? Was it because I was too shameless in the past that you thought I would always wait for you?" Duguqing looked at him, sobbing uncontrollably. After spending half a year together and chasing after each other for 3 months, all of her obsessions had been destroyed and all of her love had been abandoned. She had thought that it was impossible between them. Who would have thought that at this moment, lying in her arms with his life hanging by a thread, he would give her hope and tell her that he regretted it? "What right do you have? When you were healthy and safe, you didn't tell me. What right do you have? When my life was hanging by a thread, you came to take the knife. You hurt me so deeply, what right do you have to die for me?" Hearing this, Yi Lingfeng's eyes darkened. He mocked himself, "That's right, I was too confident. If it was anyone else, they would have already stabbed me. I'm so cold-blooded, heartless, and fickle in love. How could the heavens let me live a carefree life and then let me happily meet someone I like and spend the rest of my life with her? Shaoqing, I'm sorry. I've let you down in the end." He slowly retracted his hand. What right did he have now? Suddenly, his hand was held. Yi Lingfeng's eyes widened. Those peach blossom eyes were filled with astonishment. Duguqing raised her eyes and looked at him angrily. "You bastard. When I shamelessly chased after you, I was rejected by you more than once. I didn't even say anything about giving up. But you've only been rejected by me once and you're already disheartened. As a man, how can your skin be so thin? You're even worse than a woman. Shao Qing. His peach blossom eyes were filled with pleasant surprise. You mustn't die, alright? I still want to reject you a few more times to get back the face I've lost, so you have to live well, alright? Du Guqing's tears fell down once again. Why hasn't the imperial physician come yet? Du Guqing looked around and still did not see the imperial physician's figure. Her eyes were suddenly filled with despair. Her hand was tightly held and Du Guqing looked down at him. Shao Qing, I'm really sorry. He coughed out a mouthful of blood and his eyes were filled with endless sorrow. I shouldn't have done this to you. Just pretend I didn't say anything. I was willing to save you, so don't be sad and blame yourself. Just treat it as me repaying all the disappointment I've given you. Yi Lingfeng's voice became a bit erratic. These words were like knives stabbing into Du Guqing's heart. Imperial father is gone, little brother is still struggling on the edge of life and death, imperial mother is heartbroken. At this time, how can you bear to abandon me? Du Guqing's eyes were filled with tears. She tightly held his hand, not daring to let go for a moment. Happiness was clearly at her fingertips, but she was always one step away. If she had bravely taken that step, would the two of them not have this kind of ending? Yi Lingfeng looked at Du Guqing in front of him and thought of the scene when the two of them first met. When I first saw you on the street, I thought in my heart, how could there be such a girl, as cute as a flower? Du Guqing looked into his eyes. That little bit of light slowly dimmed and her heart felt like thousands of knives were stabbing into it. Lingfeng, you're not allowed to leave, you're not allowed to leave. Shao Qing, live like a flower. Be happy and live bravely. I'm sorry, like a gust of wind sweeping across your lake, but in the end, I can't stop. If possible, I want to take care of you for a lifetime and be rejected by you again and again, so you can get back the face you've lost. If possible, I want to hug you. After so many years, you're the first girl to make my heart ache. I think you'll also be the last one in my life. There are no ifs, please take good care of yourself. In your next life, don't meet a man like me again. That pair of peach blossom eyes slowly closed. In March, the peach blossoms bloom, and in April, the fragrance is gone. Next year, the branches will grow, and the flowers will bloom again the next month. In the unseen world, reincarnation will turn. Du Guqing hugged Yi Lingfeng, crying her heart out. Chu Qingyan stood to the side, silently glancing over, her eyes filled with sorrow. The saddest thing in the world was to be separated by love. Chapter 555. Turan and King Kun were fighting. King Kun was beaten back by Turan, and most of his men were already subdued. However, there was a man beside King Kun who was extremely skilled in martial arts. Xiao Su fought with him, and because the two of them were extremely lethal, Xiao Su lured him out of the hall. After Chu Qingyan dealt with the man in front of her, she went out of the hall with her sword to help Big Ice Cube. As the other party had many men, even if Big Ice Cube's martial arts were unparalleled, she was afraid that he would not be able to fight against so many people. Unfortunately, Chu Qingyan underestimated Big Ice Cube's strength. He lured them out just to make it easier to interrogate them. When she went out, she saw Big Ice Cube pointing his sword at the leader's throat and asking coldly, "Who sent you?" "I have no comment." That person looked at Xiao Su with a touch of defeat in his eyes. If not for this person's meticulous mind that foiled his and King Kun's plan, the entire Shang Kingdom's palace would be in their hands, and Xiao Su would be a dead soul under his sword. Unfortunately, he had become his prisoner. If that's the case, do it yourself. Xiao Su threw the sword in his hand in front of him. That person looked at Xiao Su in shock, then revealed a smile. "It's my honor to be able to fight with you. It's my pity that I didn't get to see you fight with my master." After he finished speaking, he took his sword and committed suicide. "Big Ice Cube, why don't you let him live?" and asked the person behind him. Chu Qingyan kept her sword and walked over to ask him. "He was trained by the royal family. It doesn't make a difference whether I ask him or not, Xiao Su replied indifferently. Chu Qingyan was slightly stunned. Someone from the royal family? Is it him? His imperial father, that cruel father who killed his son? I don't know. Xiao Su lowered his eyes. He couldn't be sure, and he wouldn't probe further. Chu Qingyan's heart ached. Even if it wasn't the Sichuan emperor, it was still a member of the royal family. The truth was cruel, so it was better not to know, right? Suddenly, Xiao Su led Chu Qingyan in a different direction. He drew his flexible sword from his waist and faced the people descending from the sky. Moon Palace Sect. Chu Qingyan was brought to the back of the big ice cube. As soon as she stood still, Tai Tu saw people in white flying down from the sky. In the middle, a woman stepped on a white dress and landed. In the cold winter night scene, he saw petals dancing in the sky. The scene was very familiar. Weren't they the people who said something about the suicide squad in the Sichuan? I didn't think that after 3 months, His Royal Highness would still remember me. The woman in the lead landed. Her snow-colored flower-painted cloak was wrapped around the back of her hand. Her fingertips rested on it, and she didn't hide her charm at all. Everyone in Jianghu wanted to kill absolute killer Mei Ji. She was the Moon Palace sect's suicide squad protector, and the snow-robed woman who stopped the big ice cube. This king only remembers your symbol. Xiao Su looked at the weapons in their hands. They all had the word moon on them. Absolute killer Mei Ji's expression turned ugly. It seemed that she was thinking too much. The big ice cube's poisonous tongue was always on display in front of the enemy. The moment he opened his mouth, he killed the enemy's arrogance. Chu Qingyan was very satisfied. I definitely won't let you leave alive today. Absolute killer Mei Ji gave the order, and the people behind her raised their swords and moved towards them. If these people in front of them weren't here to assassinate them, Chu Qingyan would feel that the fluttering white clothes and long hair in front of her, and if there was a bit of white fog, it would be like a gathering at the Jade Lake. Unfortunately, these people were all cold and emotionless. Every one of them was a killing move. Xiao Su didn't even frown. He directly swung the long sword in his hand. The sharp edge of the sword met the attack head-on. Chu Qingyan wasn't willing to be outdone. She also tangled with these people from the Moon Palace sect. He didn't know if it was because the detoxifying herbs this time had the effect of increasing his power, but Xiao Su found that every time he attacked tonight, the power was a bit stronger than before. Although the people from the Moon Palace sect had all been trained to be strong, in Xiao Su's eyes, they were like moths to a flame. One by one, they were sent flying. Absolute killer Mei Ji was originally very pleased with herself. This time, there was only one weak woman by Xiao Su's side, Chu Qingyan. She didn't expect that this weak woman wasn't weak at all. Not only did she injure several of her trusted subordinates, but she also injured Xiao Su's side. She had lost more than half of her people. It wasn't that her people were idiots, but this person was really too strong. Absolute killer Mei Ji couldn't help but pinch the silk cloth in her hand and fly towards Xiao Su. While he was dealing with the people in front of him, she attacked his back. Xiao Su seemed to have eyes on the back of his head. He finished off the people in front of him with a single sword. Then, he turned around and hit her with a palm. She had used all of her power, but she couldn't match half of his power. Absolute killer Mei Ji felt that the moment the two of them collided, the meridians in her body suddenly broke. She couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Her whole body fell heavily to the ground. Xiao Su didn't hesitate. The sword in his hand went straight towards her. Absolute killer Mei Ji's eyes widened. She didn't expect that she would die here today. But at this time, a leaf flew towards Xiao Su. Xiao Su recognized the hidden weapon in the air. He retracted the sword in his hand and blocked it in front of him. That leaf hit his sword. After the force was removed, it fell to the ground. Chu Qingyan had already returned to Xiao Su's side. She frowned as she looked in the direction the leaf came from. Who was it this time? She saw a dark purple figure flying in the air. He somersaulted in the air and landed in front of Absolute Killer Meiji. A purple veil covered his face, revealing a pair of flirtatious phoenix eyes. His expression was as cold as a knife. His body was shining and there seemed to be a glazed light flowing in his eyes. Chu Qingyan suddenly recalled that this man was the one who had barged into her room and kidnapped her. Wasn't he the one who had left a jade tablet in her room? Wait, that's not right. Why did this person give her a familiar feeling? Had she seen him somewhere before? Young master. Absolute Killer Meiji's face showed a touch of joy. Protector Meiji has suffered. The languid voice was charming. After that person answered, he was slightly stunned. Oh no, he forgot to change his voice. Chu Qingyan's eyes widened. This voice? Higashio Motetsu. Higashio Motetsu couldn't help but look at Chu Qingyan. Seeing her looking at him with a face full of shock, his eyes showed a touch of frustration. He was still discovered. He reached out and took off the purple veil on his face. Then, he smiled. His smile was a bit bitter. Little girl, we meet again. You're the Moon Palace sect's young master. Chu Qingyan's mind was filled with the way Absolute Killer Meiji addressed him. Something seemed to be broken in the depths of her eyes. I didn't expect to be exposed so quickly. Little girl, let me introduce myself again. I am Higashio Motetsu, the current young master of the Moon Palace sect. Higashio Motetsu raised his hand and waved at her. Since it had already come to this point, then he might as well be frank. Chapter 556. The person in front of her was a peerless beauty with an enchanting smile. It should have been a pleasing scene, but in Chu Qingyan's eyes, it was a deep thorn in her side. You told me before that you are not a member of the Moon Palace, and that your father has long since retired. It's fake. You said you are not the young master of the Moon Palace. In order to not make you suspicious. You said you approached me without a motive. I lied to you. Higashio Motetsu hesitated for a moment, then finally sighed and replied. In the beginning, it was close, but then it wasn't, and finally, with one question and one answer, the entire garden fell silent. Although Xiao Su had never seen Dongting Wangyu before, he had only heard the conversation between him and the little fellow. He had more or less guessed the identity of this person, as well as their past. The little fellow knew someone, but he did not know. It was a terrible feeling. But seeing the little fellow's grief and indignation at this time, he could not help but put away his displeasure first. He sheathed his sword and walked to her side. He stood by her side and supported her with a full stance, silently telling her that no matter how many wolves, tigers, and leopards there were in this world, he would never leave her. Chu Qingyan closed her eyes, then opened them. The desolation in her eyes had disappeared, replaced by a cold alienation. All right, I have nothing else to say. Thank you, young master of the Moon Palace, for your answer. Chu Qingyan's tone did not carry any emotion, but a faint self-deprecating smile hung at the corner of her mouth. Higashio Motetsu felt that a chasm had suddenly been drawn between the two of them, and then gradually drifted apart. A touch of sorrow flashed through his phoenix eyes. Little girl, why didn't you continue asking? I did not give the order of death, and I did not intend to kill Xiao Su. I approached you with a motive, but that does not mean I want to hurt you. But why didn't you continue asking? Because we were on different sides. Did you have to draw your swords against him? He saw her draw her sword and pointed at him, without any hesitation in her eyes. His heart suddenly felt like it was being squeezed. Xiao Su stood by her side, and could feel the sorrow emanating from her. The feeling of being betrayed must be very uncomfortable. Now, for him, you have to draw your sword against a friend of the past. This is too difficult for you. Xiao Su raised his hand to hold her hand, then pulled her behind him, then looked at Higashio Motetsu with a serious expression. Young master of the Moon Palace, what advice do you have for me? Higashio Motetsu. He looked at Xiaosu, then smiled, and said, Xiaosu, sword. Xiaosu sheathed his sword and looked at him. I'd like to hear the details. The Moon Palace has issued a kill order. Once it is issued, it will not stop until one of us is dead. I can take back the order, but I hope that your highness can show some sincerity. Higashio Motetsu smiled, and his charm was unparalleled. Young master, you can't take back the order. The Moon Palace has never had such a precedent. Meiji immediately tried to stop him when she heard this. You dare to refute my words? Higashio Motetsu raised his eyes, and his gaze was cold. Meiji immediately fell silent. This young master always had a smile on his face, but no one in the sect dared to disobey him. Chu Qingyan listened to him and lowered her head. As expected, he had a motive. Xiaosu glanced at the person beside him and felt her depressed mood. He thought for a moment, then said, What do you want? The Heart Moon Protection Mantra. Higashio Motetsu looked at him and said word by word. Xiaosu frowned slightly and searched for these words in his memory. Later, he remembered that he had accidentally obtained a manual in Jiangnan. It was a pity that it was not the same as his martial arts, but because it was a gift from an old friend, he kept it. All right, but that item is not with me, Xiaosu replied calmly. Higashio Motetsu smiled. There's no rush. As long as the deal is done, you can take it whenever you want. I believe in your highness's integrity. All right. Xiaosu nodded. After almost a year of searching, this time it was finally complete. Higashio Motetsu's heart was filled with joy, but when his gaze fell on the red figure, the joy in his heart faded. Little girl, I didn't think that the most innocent person would be hurt in the end. Higashio Motetsu looked away and said, I will give you the address in the future. I will wait for your highness good news. With that, he waved his hand and left with his disciples. Her white muslin dress fluttered in the air, just as elegant as it had been before they came. Xiaosu turned and looked at the person with her head lowered. Qingyan, you owe me an explanation. Chu Qingyan stilled slightly and recovered from her sadness. She raised her head to look at the person in front of her. She knew that when the big ice cube asked her in such a serious tone, it meant that he was angry. She pursed her lips and told him about her encounter with Higashio Motetsu and what happened next, including how she recognized him as the man in black who had snuck into the palace. Xiaosu listened to her slowly talk about these things and his heart was complicated. So the little fellow had hidden so many things from him. But thinking about it, the little fellow was not his pet and should have the right to make friends independently. It was just that he felt uncomfortable. But he could see that she was sad because she had been betrayed by her good friend. He felt that from what she said, Higashio Motetsu had many opportunities to attack her, but he did not. Instead, he helped her many times, so he should not have any bad intentions towards her. But he felt that there was no need to tell her this. He put a hand on her head and said softly, It's okay. We can make more friends. It's fine as long as we are sincere. Chu Qingyan thought that he would scold her for hiding so many things from him. If she had told him earlier, then Higashio Motetsu's identity would have been exposed and the Moon Palace would not have tried to assassinate them again and again. But she asked herself, if she knew that Higashio Motetsu had lied to her, would she have told the big ice cube? She did not know. But the big ice cube's words made her feel much better. Big ice cube, I make friends with my heart. I blindfold my eyes and trust someone. But if there comes a day when I'm betrayed or hurt, I'll accept it. But there won't be a second time. She bit her lips and looked disappointed. You learn from your mistakes. Xiaosu stroked her long hair and comforted her. But I still feel sad. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and her voice was a little hoarse. Then, I'll lend you my shoulder. Xiaosu raised his eyebrows. He was not good at comforting people. Chu Qingyan chuckled when she heard that. The big ice cube was so cute. She stretched out her hands and tilted her head. Just hug me. Hug me and use your warmth to dispel my coldness. Let me believe that in this world, other than using people, there is also warmth. Xiao Su curled his lips and pulled her into his arms. Chapter 557. Big Ice Cube, why did you agree to his request? Our valiant cavalry is not afraid of the Moon Palace. Hu Xin, he tried his best to get it. Is it important? Chu Qingyan leaned into his embrace and asked in puzzlement. Xiao Su replied, the heart-protecting moon is a treasure to others, but not to me. Since he wants it, I'll give it to him. It's worth it to exchange a useless book for a relentless pursuit. The valiant cavalry has no interest in fooling around with these people. In fact, he had heard of the heart-protecting moon before. It was rumored to be one of the top 3 martial arts absolute art rankings. If mastered, one's future would be limitless. However, he felt that although this person had ulterior motives, he had helped her along the way. For example, the Blue Manor deal was considered repaying the favor for the little one. Furthermore, although the little one drew her saber against Higashio Motetsu for him, he could tell that the little one did not want to be enemies with Higashio Motetsu. That was why he said that exchanging a cultivation technique for a relentless pursuit was worth it, because he did not want to put the little one in a difficult position. However, there was no need to tell the little one these things. That's good too. Chu Qingyan nodded. She left his embrace and her mood had improved. She looked up at the person in front of her and blinked. Big Ice Cube, you promised to let me see your true face on New Year's Eve. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Now. Chu Qingyan suddenly recalled that they were still in the Shang Empire's imperial palace. She regretted her words, then I'll go back later. She did not want too many people to see the Big Ice Cube's true face. Okay. Xiao Su nodded. At that moment, Turin walked over. Master, King Kuan and his men have been captured. We succeeded in luring the enemy. Very good. Let Huling and the rest return after they are done with those people. Xiao Su instructed. Yes. Turin nodded. By the way, young Master Yi. Chu Qingyan suddenly remembered and immediately asked, Turin, how is young Master Yi? Is it true? Turin replied, young Master Yi lost too much blood and fainted. However, the injuries on his back are too severe. Ethereal said that he was not confident that he could save him. It all depends on his will. Chu Qingyan heaved a sigh of relief. Alright, as long as he's still breathing, there will be a way. She couldn't bear to see a lover end up like a ghost. Xiao Su's expression was grim. No matter the cost, we must make sure he survives. Yes. Turin nods. Yi Lingfeng is one of Master's few good friends. They won't let anything happen to him. It was already late at night. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su returned to their room. At this moment, Chu Qingyan was holding a bottle of potion in her hand. It was said that once dipped in the potion, it could peel off the human skin mask on Big Ice's face and reveal his true appearance. Chu Qingyan's fingers were trembling. She was both anticipating and afraid. Xiao Su could sense her emotions and couldn't help but find it funny. However, he didn't say anything. Chu Qingyan had already torn off the mask between his brows. She saw the jade-like smooth skin on his forehead and the sword-like eyebrows that were neither thick nor light. Her fingers paused and continued downward. His long and narrow eyes were slightly closed. His long and curly eyelashes were curled. He was even more beautiful and slender than a woman. Chu Qingyan was jealous. Why was it longer than hers? She couldn't accept it. However, her hand didn't stop. It continued slowly. All the way down, it was a tall nose and thin lips. As she was very close, she could only see part of him. When she took off the human skin mask, she was already stunned. Who was this young master that could cause the downfall of a country? Borrowing the water to bloom, it was strange. The water was the bones, and the jade was the flesh. She remembered that when she had lost to Big Ice, he had hidden his snow-white skin under his luxurious clothes. However, she didn't expect that at this moment, when he took off his mask, the skin on his cheeks would give people the same feeling. Handsome eyebrows and slender eyes. He looked around. His eyes were like black jade, filled with a river of stars. The specks of light were even more resplendent under the candlelight. The spring breeze melted his eyebrows. His lips seemed to be stained with the morning dew, flickering with light. Exquisite eyebrows and eyes. His nose was like a hanging beam. His lips were like a painted pill. Every part of him was very outstanding. When his facial features were put together, it became a handsome painting. Accumulated stones were like jade. Arranged pine trees were like green. His beauty was unparalleled in this world. This was simply an upgraded version of the mask she had seen in the inn. She had some suspicions. Back then, Big Ice didn't wear a mask at all. It was just that his facial features weren't outstanding. However, his facial features were already enough to turn all living things upside down. Now that he didn't hide it, people couldn't help but admire him. Dressed in black, he stood there casually, but he was already more beautiful than the world's most beautiful flowers and pearls. Xiao Su looked at her mouth that was wide enough to hold an egg. He couldn't help but smile. Scared stiff. His smile was like the sun that suddenly rose on a snowy mountain peak. A layer of golden light shrouded the snow, reflecting dazzling light. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but answer. "You're stunning." After blurting it out, she realized what she had said and couldn't help but blush. Xiao Su couldn't help but smile when he heard this. The little fellow's reaction was quite interesting. Perhaps she was already used to his appearance, or perhaps she didn't care much about it. Xiao Su didn't pay much attention to his own appearance. However, seeing the little fellow's reaction, he was quite satisfied with his own appearance. However, as a man, appearance was not very important. Strength was what mattered the most. He could rely on his own strength to gain a foothold in the world. Whether his appearance was good or bad, it was just a bonus. He stretched out his hand and waved it in front of her. "It's time to come back to reality." Suddenly, his hand was hugged by her. When he raised his eyebrows in confusion, he heard her mutter to herself. "So my big ice block is a tall, rich, and handsome man. I've hugged a thigh." Xiao Su smiled when he heard this. "Big ice block, it's a good thing you covered your appearance. Otherwise, you would have been knocked out by fruits when you went out." In ancient times, there was a phenomenon. If a man was very outstanding, people would throw fruits at them to express their admiration and pursuit. Chu Qingyan thought of this scene and was a little shocked. "You think that people would dare to throw things at me?" Xiao Su hooked his lips. Chu Qingyan thought of how this person was cold and unapproachable in front of outsiders. Perhaps those people only dared to look at him from afar and didn't dare to touch him. However, in the future, Big Ice Cube, your appearance will attract too much attention. You'd better cover yourself up. Chu Qingyan shook his arm and said righteously. Who knew that she had her own selfish motives and didn't want others to see the big ice block's appearance? Xiao Su had never cared about his appearance. He agreed without hesitation. It was very late at night. After Xiao Su sent the little fellow out, he couldn't help but laugh and was about to close the door when he saw someone who surprised him. Mr. Ruo. Chapter 558. Mr. Ruo was Xiao Su's most outstanding strategist. When he returned to the court after defeating the enemy, Mr. Ruo did not follow him and stayed at the border. But he did not expect to see him at this time. At this time, his clothes were covered in mud. It could be seen that he had traveled a long distance without stopping. His face was also filled with fatigue. Hualing and Turan saw their master's appearance and understood. Master had confessed his true appearance to the little princess. It seemed like the position of the little princess in Master's heart was becoming higher and higher. Xiao Su moved aside to let them in. Huoling and Turan, who followed behind Mr. Ruo, also came in. Xiao Su first poured a cup of hot tea for Mr. Ruo to let him catch his breath. Then he turned to Turan and Huoling. At this time, Huoling presented an urgent secret report. It came from the Sichuan Imperial Palace. When Xiao Su saw the handwriting on it, he knew who had sent it. He hesitated for a moment before finally opening it. After quickly skimming through it, Xiao Su's face suddenly froze. In order to make him return to the Sichuan, Muhu was actually using death. The letter said that Fu Huang was planning to use his disappearance for several months to make Xiao Ran the crown prince. As long as he appeared in the Sichuan, then his Fu Huang's plan would be dispelled. So if he dared to abandon his identity as the Sichuan eldest prince, abandon the Liang family, abandon everything and leave, then she would die in Zhaoyang Palace for him to see. Other than using filial piety to threaten him, what else could Muhu do? The change in Xiao Su's expression did not escape everyone's eyes. They felt the entire room become cold. He closed his eyes, and the layer of sadness in his eyes was put away. Mr. Ruo, why have you come to find Ben Wang this time? He was always gentle and polite to this strategist. Mr. Ruo and Xiao Su bowed to him before stating the reason for their visit. Lord, after you went missing in Sichuan, this one was very worried. I brought people to the border to look for you, but halfway through, I received news from Shaolai Cavalry that you were fine. I planned to return to the border, but I didn't expect to receive another message from Water Spirit. Traces of a mine were found in the Fuli mountain range. Perhaps there really is a mine hidden there, but this one felt that the most important thing for you at that time was to find the antidote, so I had Water Spirit put this message aside for the time being. Sir Ruo continued, but not long ago, this humble one received news of your assassination attempt. These people were not only from the imperial court, but also from the Jianghu. This humble one was reminded of this matter again, which is why I came to find you. This humble one knows that you have no intention of vying for the throne, but I'm worried that one day, even if the tiger is harmless to the human heart, the person will have the intention to kill the tiger. Xiao Su frowned. If Mr. Ruo has something to say, please say it. Mr. Ruo nodded and said solemnly, Lord, although this humble one knows that you have decided to live in seclusion in the imperial court and no longer interfere in Sichuan's political affairs, this humble one is worried that those who have been your enemies in the past will not let you go, including the current emperor. Back then, the emperor used a scheme to lure you away from the capital, but he didn't expect you to survive. Now that the Fuli mountain range really does have traces of a mine, this humble one thinks that Lord can ask to return to the Fuli mountain range. On the surface, you appear to be an idle lord in charge of searching for a mine in the Fuli mountain range. You can appear openly in front of everyone, and those people won't dare to assassinate you so brazenly. At the same time, it will lower His Majesty's guard against you. Xiao Su understood what he meant and couldn't help but frown in deep thought. Mr. Ruo was afraid that he wouldn't agree and immediately said, Your Highness, you don't have the intention to participate in the struggle for power, but you must have the ability to protect yourself. No one knows if His Majesty will make a move against you one day. Since he gave the Fuli mountain range to you, but he doesn't know that there are mines inside, we can push the boat with the current and take the mines for our own use. If there is a day when we become enemies, His Majesty won't dare to make a move against you so easily. Turan and Huoling looked at each other. They didn't think that things would develop to this point. They immediately looked at their master, not knowing what decision he would make. Allow this prince to consider. Xiao Su stood up with his back to everyone and said lightly. No one knew that the person with his back to them slowly clenched his hands in his sleeves and revealed a bitter expression. Mr. Ruo still wanted to say something, but seeing that Lord had already expressed his refusal to talk, he sighed, and left with Turan and Huoling. Xiao Su didn't know how long he had been standing there, but he felt that there was an extra person behind him. Big Ice Cube. Why are you here? Xiao Su turned around and saw that she was wearing loose casual clothes. He guessed that she had already fallen asleep, so he stood up again. He walked forward and picked up the cloak on the back of the chair, wrapping it tightly around her before sitting down on a chair to the side. I heard about what happened tonight from Huoling and the others. Are you very troubled? Chu Qingyan asked with concern. Xiao Su admitted. Then he asked, if it was you, what would you do? Chu Qingyan lowered her head to think for a moment when she heard this. Then she looked up with a bright smile, go to Fuli mountain range and take the mines there into our pockets. Then if anyone dares to harm us in the future, we'll show them and scare them to death. Didn't you want to travel around? This was one of the reasons why he was hesitating. He had promised her that he would no longer participate in politics. Playing is a small matter, getting rich is a big matter. Just sitting around and eating is not a good idea. Also, I want you, Big Ice Cube, to live openly in Sichuan. Chu Qingyan suddenly looked at him with a serious expression. Big Ice Cube, I don't want others to think that you're a coward who hides and doesn't dare to show yourself. Even if they want to harm us, it's fine. If one comes, we'll beat one. If a pair comes, we'll send them flying. I don't believe that those people who use nobility to flaunt themselves would dare to harm others openly. Big Ice Cube, you didn't do anything wrong. It's time for you to take back what belongs to you. This is what Sichuan owes you. Also, we're only doing this to protect ourselves, not to cause internal strife. What's there to worry about? On the other hand, if they dare to touch us in the slightest, we'll use the mines to smash them down. Chu Qingyan said with righteous indignation. Xiao Su looked at her little face, which was red from anger, and his face suddenly brightened. Okay. This was his bottom line. This was his last concession. If they stepped on his bottom line next time, then he wouldn't let them off so easily. After New Year's Eve that year, Sichuan actually started to snow heavily for the first time ever. On the third day of the first lunar month, Sichuan Emperor received a letter from Xiao Su. The letter said that Xiao Su had been missing for a period of time because he had been seriously injured by an assassin. Now that his health had suddenly deteriorated, he asked to go to Fuli Mountain to look for ores and recuperate at the same time. He wanted to do his last bit of strength for Sichuan. The ministers of the imperial court were moved by the King of England's actions. They expressed that the King of England had made great contributions to the country and the people for so many years. Now that he was seriously injured, he still cared about Sichuan. They all asked Sichuan Emperor to approve his request. The West Xian Emperor, on the other hand, had been moved after reading the last paragraph of his eldest son's letter. I admitted that he wasn't capable enough to take on such a big responsibility, so he took the initiative to give up the right to inherit the throne. He now needed time to wait for Ranner to grow up, so Su-er's letter came at the right time. After Ranner grew up, he would eradicate those who were not conducive to Ranner's consolidation of imperial power one by one. After all, one mountain couldn't accommodate two tigers. After Sichuan Emperor agreed, Xiao Su led Xiao Lai cavalry and the others to Fuli Mountain. In the blink of an eye, 4 years had passed. In 4 years, how did those people grow up? That ink-eyed youth, that 10-year-old girl, how many years of youth did they experience? Fighting for imperial power, scheming and deceitful, can you and I stay together forever? After thousands of dangers, the phoenix is reborn. I'll play a song for you. Chapter 559. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 4 years had passed. What had happened in these 4 years? Rumor had it that an organization had appeared among the people. A year ago, they had ordered their subordinates to collect information on all the handsome men and beautiful women in the world and create a ranking system. Thus, a ranking list of the 8 most handsome men was created, and the ranking was not in order. Prince Xiao Ran of West Xian was only 16 years old. He was handsome and elegant, and people called him Flawless White Jade. The southern blue crown prince, Peng Huang, was only 20 years old. He was handsome and confident, and was known as the dragon in the clouds. Enlightened monk Su Jian, 20 years old, secluded in the valley. Spiritual Lotus Seed. Moon Palace's young master Higashio Motetsu, 20 years old, elegant, and devilish. Jade Swallow. Sichuan Prince Lin Fengyi, 21 years old, handsome, and beautiful. Jade Swallow. Famous and noble Ouyang Ju, 23 years old, elegant, and confident. Jade Swallow. There was also a handsome young man, 15 years old, named Chu Yen, known as the Thousand-Faced Red Fox. Every time he appeared, he only liked to dress in red. He was also good at sophistry, and his whereabouts were uncertain. No one had heard of this person before, but in the past 2 years, he had suddenly risen among the people. Not many people had seen him in person, but those who had seen him could not help but be mesmerized by his beauty. The 8 most handsome men were either of noble status, wealthy families, or elegant characters. But in short, they all had one thing in common, and that was that they were all unmarried. Even if Prince of Nansung Pang Huang had a concubine, in the eyes of the unmarried ladies, he was still a bachelor. The people on the ranking list could all be called golden bachelors. But because of their special status, very few people could see these handsome men on the ranking list. Thus, fantasizing became something that many women had to do every day. If I can meet Jade Swallow, I will definitely tell him about my feelings of longing. A girl in pink held her chin with both hands, showing a love-struck expression. Sigh, I would like to see Cloud Dragon first. I heard that he is brave and good at fighting. He is a very brave and handsome man. The girl in blue beside the girl in pink also had a love-struck expression. If I was 1 year younger, I would want to marry the Thousand-Faced Red Fox. I heard that his martial arts are outstanding, his appearance is devastatingly beautiful, and he treats people gently. If I could marry him, I would die without regrets. Another girl at the same table shook her head and sighed. At this time, in the corner of the restaurant, a 14 or 15-year-old girl covered her mouth and teased a young man wearing a gauze hat beside her. Young master, someone is confessing to you again. You really like both young and old. The fingers of the youth who was drinking tea paused. He tilted his head and glanced at his personal maidservant. His voice carried a trace of languid freshness and blurriness. I found that after coming out, your mouth has become much sweeter. It's all thanks to young master's guidance. Maybe when we come out to play more in the future, I will be better at talking. The girl stuck out her tongue at him and took the opportunity to say. The youth shook his head with a smile and said to the swordsman in front of him, who was also 14 or 15-year-old, Jean Xian, have you noticed that Xining is getting more and more thick-skinned? I think so too. For years later, Jean Xian had gotten rid of the naivety of the past. It was as if he had learned to hide his sharpness and not show it. He was like a sword, handsome and handsome. Xining heard this and glared at Jean Xian fiercely, then quarreled with him again. The personal maid was Xining, and the personal guard was Jean Xian. It was not difficult to guess the identity of the youth. Chu Qingyan 4 years ago, Chu Yan 4 years later, and now the well-known Thousand-Faced Red Fox. It was just that no one could connect the two unrelated identities. Chu Qingyan played with the teacup in her hand, ignoring the quarrel between Xining and Jean Xian. She felt a little regretful. The ranking of handsome men was just a claptrap. There were more than a few handsome men in the world. If her big ice cube stood out, he could kill them in a second. However, she would not let the world see the big ice cube's face so easily. She tapped her finger on the table, but to be honest, she knew many of the 7 handsome men on the ranking. She remembered that when she left Sichuan 4 years ago, Xiao Ran was only a 12-year-old child. She wondered how he was now. She only knew that under the deliberate training of the Sichuan emperor, he had begun to participate in court politics last year. As the saying goes, a girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. Boys also change when they grow up. She just did not expect that he would become the flawless white jade in the eyes of the people. She really missed the young man who had held her back and refused to let her leave after 4 years of not seeing him. She did not know the Prince of Nansong, but she had heard many stories about him. He was the brave and good war god of Nansang. Chu Qingyan did not think too much about the rest. Anyway, she would not have much interaction with him. However, she did not know that some people had not appeared yet, but it did not mean that they would be absent from your life. In Chu Qingyan's eyes, Su Jian was still a swindler. However, it was also thanks to him that she was able to successfully obtain the ice crystal flower. When they left Jiang country, he also left. He wandered for 3 years and only returned to Sichuan last year. They had not seen each other since they parted ways in Jiang country. Higashio Motetsu was the person Chu Qingyan did not want to mention the most. However, she would hear more or less about him. For example, he had established his own organization in the past 4 years, the Full Moon Sect. However, other than this, there was very little news about him. Chu Qingyan snorted. Perhaps he was concentrating on cultivating his heart-protecting moon technique. Lin Fengyi was another good friend of Big Ice Cube. She heard that he was working in Jiangnan. Chu Qingyan was quite curious about him. However, they had been monitored by the imperial court for the past few years. For safety reasons, they did not move around. If there was a chance, she wanted to go to Jiangnan to take a look. Chu Qingyan did not know much about Ouyangnian. It was only limited to the rumors circulating in the market. Therefore, Chu Qingyan did not delve into it. After drinking a few mouthfuls of tea, she suddenly missed Mao Jian. She had been out for half a day. It was time to go back and eat. At this moment, Jean Exain lowered his head and said, "Master, it will be 5 in an hour. If we do not return, His Highness will punish us." When Chu Qingyan thought about her Big Ice Cube's handsome face and frowned slightly, her heart couldn't help but tremble. She coughed softly and said, "Let's go back." Putting down the silver, she got up. Her movements were as smooth as flowing water. The 3 of them passed through the tea house and headed for the door. The girls at the table who had been discussing earlier were attracted by the red-clothed youth in the lead. He liked to wear red clothes, covered his face with a veil, and had a male and female bodyguard and servant girl by his side. He was tall and had a noble temperament. Wasn't this the description of the thousand-faced red fox? The girls were somewhat uncertain. However, a gust of wind blew and inadvertently lifted the white veil, revealing an exquisite and handsome side profile. Everyone could not help but stare blankly. When they came back to their senses, the 3 of them had already walked far away. "What a handsome youth!" someone exclaimed. In March, the peach blossoms bloomed. In April, the fragrance faded. Next year, the branches sprouted. In the following month, the flowers bloomed again. In the unseen world, reincarnation turned. Everything began again. Chapter 560. For years ago, Xiaosu submitted a memorial saying that he was willing to stay in the Fuli mountain range to search for mineral resources and recuperate at the same time. The Sichuan emperor was very satisfied with this move because it would give Xiao Ran enough time to grow. It could also block the opinions of the party that supported Xiaosu. However, in order to make the Sichuan emperor feel that he was treating Xiaosu too coldly, he waved his hand and gave the barren hills and towns within 100 li of the Fuli mountain range to Xiaosu as his fief. Because those places were either deserted forests or farmlands that didn't have much of a harvest, it looked like a large area, but in reality, there was no tax to be collected. It could be said that it was of little value. However, how could he refuse an emperor's reward? Xiaosu accepted it without a word of complaint. Because this place was too desolate, the Sichuan emperor was very kind and didn't collect taxes from them. However, sometimes, a grain of sand that people didn't care about could become a pearl one day. Chu Qingyan brought Xining and Jean Exain back to Liancheng. At this time, Liancheng was no longer as desolate as it had been in the past. Now, vendors and small bosses were shouting on both sides of the street. The people coming and going were all people rushing home to cook and eat. There was an endless stream of horses and carriages, and wine flags fluttered in the wind. It was a lively scene. Perhaps it wasn't as prosperous as the capital, but to be able to achieve such results in such a remote place was already shocking enough. After 4 years, one had to have a whole new level of respect for them. However, all of this was due to Xiao Su's support. In the past, this place was still in ruins. Although the people weren't as bad as not having enough clothes to cover their bodies and food, it was normal for them to not know their next meal. Chu Qingyan stepped on the road back to the residence and saw that the commoners were living and working peacefully. She thought back to the time when they first arrived at this place, and how the commoners were afraid of them and ostracized them. Every time she saw such a peaceful life, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Her family's big ice cube was awesome. He could bring peace to the country through martial arts, and he could govern the country through literature. Look at how well he governed this place. She liked to walk back instead of riding a carriage because she liked to hear the praises of her family's big ice block and Xiao Lai ride from the people on the streets. It gave her a feeling of glory. In the past few years, she had also helped Big Ice Cube deal with these towns and barren mountains. Many times, she would pass on modern ideas to him. Big Ice Cube was too smart. Every time, he would be able to draw inferences from her words and apply them practically. But it had to be said that sometimes, the collision of ancient and modern ideas could really create sparks. The King of England's residence. These 3 words suddenly appeared in front of her. There was a similar plaque in the capital. However, the words, capital, didn't seem to give off much of a feeling. However, the words in front of him gave off the feeling of a family's warmth. He didn't know if it was because his mentality had changed that he had such thoughts. There were 4 bodyguards standing guard outside the mansion. When they saw Chu Qingyan return, they bowed and saluted. Chu Qingyan was just about to step into the gate when she heard shouts coming from inside. The woman I introduced to Lord is a great beauty called Water Spirit. Why are you getting involved with me? A rough voice sounded. Oh, what's the use of looking like Water Spirit? Is she knowledgeable? Is she good at zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting? Do you know how to solve flowers and share the prince's worries? Another sharp voice, Chu Yan, squeezed. Old woman Su, are you looking for trouble with this old woman? Old woman Li, are you done yet? 2 gorgeously dressed matchmakers in their 30s or 40s walked out while cursing. However, they bumped into Chu Qingyan's group of 3. Old woman Su and old woman Li were people who relied on their eyesight to make a living. When they saw the young master in the lead, they saw that he was wearing a red robe with tight stitches. They could see that it was a famous Su embroidery of the highest quality. Although his face couldn't be seen due to the gauze hat on his head, some people's temperament was enough to make people fall head over heels for him. And the red-clothed youth in front of them already made the eyes of the 2 old women shine. Their occupational habits immediately flared up. This young master, may I ask your name and age? Where do you live? Have you ever married? Are your parents still alive? What business does your family have? The 2 had been quarreling fiercely just now, but the words they asked now were surprisingly tacit. After they finished speaking, the 2 glared at each other and whispered that she had seen this young master first. When the 2 finished speaking, the guards on both sides couldn't help but snicker. These 2 really had eyes but couldn't see gold and jade. The person in front of them was the mistress of their Wang Fu, their lord's most precious little Wang Fei. Just now, they had loudly proposed a marriage for the lord in front of her. Now, they wanted to propose a marriage for the little Wang Fei. They would probably be tortured to death later. They were waiting for a good show. You want to propose a marriage for His Royal Highness? Chu Qingyan seemed to not have heard their question. She raised an eyebrow slightly and asked in an indifferent tone. When the 2 heard her tone, it seemed that she was familiar with His Royal Highness. They felt that they had a chance of being a matchmaker, so the 2 immediately started talking at once. They talked about how beautiful and virtuous the person they wanted to propose a marriage for His Royal Highness. After the 2 talked for a long time, they found that the person in front of them didn't pay attention to them at all. Their expressions suddenly became a bit embarrassed. What about you two? You want to propose a marriage for the Lord, but have you asked his Wang Fei? Chu Qingyan's tone was still slow and leisurely. This. The two looked at each other and then shook their heads. Don't you know that the Wang Fei is in charge of everything in the inner courtyard? Including the selection of concubines and maidservants. So when you see the Wang Fei, you can ask her for instructions. Chu Qingyan finished speaking and leisurely turned, planning to leave. But this young master, the King of England's consort, has never shown her face. Where can we go to find her? The two women had received money from the other party and couldn't help but feel anxious. Chu Qingyan curled her lips. This one can't help you. Send the guests out. As soon as he finished speaking, two guards stepped forward and grabbed the two burly matchmakers and brought them to the door. Ai, this official, who is that young master just now? How old is he? Where does he live? Is he married? Are his parents still alive? What business does his family have? They didn't manage to get the King of England to marry, but the two didn't want to let go of that young master just now. He must be a smart and elegant young master. One of the guards sneered, open your eyes and take a look. You dare to covet our Lord's people? Go, 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 don't come again. Inviting you out this time is already very polite. If you anger our Wang Fei, you can imagine the consequences. The two matchmakers then left with their tails between their legs. Chu Qingyan had just stepped onto the steps of the main courtyard when she saw Hualing. She immediately waved at him and had him come over. She asked in a small voice, how is His Highness' mood today? Hualing winked at her, reporting to the princess, dark clouds are gathering. You're on your own. Chu Qingyan's shoulders instantly collapsed. It's over, could she not see the big ice cube? Chapter 561. After hesitating outside for a while, Chu Qingyan felt that it was better to be stabbed than to be stabbed. It would be better to just walk in and be stabbed. Perhaps this matter would be over. When she gathered her courage and stood at the door, her footsteps suddenly stopped. Wait, she still hadn't thought of an excuse. At this moment, a deep voice came out from inside. How long do you want to dawdle? As soon as the voice fell, Chu Qingyan couldn't help rubbing her nose. Then she lifted her foot and walked in. Shi Ning and Jean Xian, who followed behind her, saw their master's usual majestic appearance in front of outsiders, but in front of His Highness, she was as obedient as a kitten. They simply didn't want to admit that she was their master. When Chu Qingyan walked in, she saw a person sitting behind a table with a book in his hand. One hand was resting on the table and the other hand was holding a book, looking very leisurely. But when that person heard her footsteps, he turned around. Even after looking at him for 4 years, she still didn't get tired of looking at his face. His eyebrows were as calm as a lake. His eyes were as clear as the moonlight. His clothes were embroidered, his face was bright and clear, and his skin was as clear as snow. His natural cold elegance made people unable to help but hold their breaths. They were afraid that their actions would disturb this noble young master who seemed to have walked out of the immortal fog. She had once inadvertently blurted out a poem to describe him, but he had thrown her a cold face and ignored her for a day. But what she said was the truth. There is a beauty in the north, aloof and independent. A glance could topple a city, a second glance could topple a country. Rather than topple a country or a city, a beauty is hard to find. A beauty wasn't necessarily used to describe a woman. It was a pity that the big ice cube didn't seem to appreciate it. Thinking of this matter, Chu Qingyan shrugged her shoulders. At this time, her attention was already on the big ice cube. She saw him put down the book and slightly knit his brows as he looked at her. At this time, she remembered that she had forgotten to take off her veil. So she raised her hand to untie the string on her chin and casually took off her veil. The face hidden behind the veil was revealed to the air. When she was 10 years old, she had already begun to show signs of her beauty. Now that 4 years had passed, the baby fat had decreased by a lot. Her cheeks seemed to be lined with the rosy clouds of the morning sun. Her skin was like snow, and the autumn water was like jade. Her fingertips were as white as snow, and her face was covered by a hibiscus. The willows between her brows were even. She was graceful and beautiful, and naturally graceful. Her jet black hair was neatly tied up with a white jade ribbon. Her crimson-red robe made her look like a young man with a jade face, making people want to take pity on her. If one had to use a poem to describe her transformation and growth after 4 years, it would be, "The clouds think of her clothes, the flowers think of her face, the spring breeze brushes the railing, the dew is dense." Time could take away many things, such as the childishness in one's brows and the freshness in one's eyes. But at the same time, many things could be left behind, such as a brighter radiance in her eyes and a more mature charm. "Where did you go today?" Xiao Su looked at her travel-worn clothes and already had an answer in his heart. Unfortunately, he wanted to hear her answer. "I'm going to Furong Garden for lunch." Chu Qingyan stood upright and said. "Is that so?" Xiao Su dragged out his tone, and then unhurriedly said, "Why didn't Huling run into you when she went to Furong Garden to buy pastries today?" No way, she was caught so quickly." Chu Qingyan immediately confessed and quickly said, "I went to Fu City." "Fu City? What did you go to Fu City for?" Xiao Su's eyes flashed with a trace of doubt. "A few days ago, I was talking to Sir Ruo about the spring floods that might affect the lives of the people on both sides of the river. So I went upstream to take a look." Chu Qingyan replied. Xiao Su relaxed his brows, and his expression eased a lot. These days, the little fellow had helped him a lot to look after his fiefdom, but he didn't allow her to leave the estate without his permission. Recently, the court had become turbulent again, and the people who tried to assassinate them before were showing signs of making a comeback. So he didn't want the little fellow to have any accidents when she went out. "Then what conclusion did you reach?" He would never not listen to the little fellow's opinion just because she was a girl. On the contrary, sometimes the little fellow's opinion was often something they hadn't thought of before. Fu City is upstream, so if the spring floods come, the impact won't be too big. But I'm afraid that the downstream won't be so optimistic. I found that the dams are built very low. If there's a flood all of a sudden, the river will definitely overflow the dams, and then flood the surrounding villages and towns. It will endanger the lives of the people and damage the property." Chu Qingyan seriously told him the situation she had observed. Because Big Ice Cube had been busy with the defense of Lian City recently, he certainly didn't have the extra energy to check the situation in Fu City. So today, when he left the estate to patrol the city, she secretly took Xining and Jin Xin out. If she had reported to Big Ice Cube in advance, he would definitely not have agreed to it. When the time came, he would have to go out himself, and she didn't know how long he would be busy. She was distressed for his health. The little fellow in front of him could be said to have become his right-hand woman. She had helped a lot in rebuilding these cities and towns. At this time, she had also provided a lot of information about the spring floods. Xiao Su's eyes flashed with a touch of appreciation. "Then in your opinion, what do you think we should do now?" He was now used to asking her, not necessarily because her suggestions were useful, but because he intended to cultivate her. Fortunately, she always lived up to his expectations. Chu Qingyan had thought of a countermeasure on the way back. At this time, when Xiao Su asked, she answered fluently. "I think we can take 3 measures. The first is to let the people downstream move away. The second is to divert Luo River. A force is huge, and if we block it blindly, it will collapse one day. But if we divert its power, then it won't be able to condense into a huge destructive force. We can also divert it to a wasteland not far downstream. I went to take a look in the afternoon and found that the wasteland is not lacking in nutrients. On the contrary, its soil is very fertile, but it lacks water. In this way, we can reduce the force of the water flow and water the soil. In the future, we can open up new fields, and the people can use it to plant crops. In the future, there will be other harvests, and we can feed many people. The last measure is that we can increase the height of the dam. No matter how strong the river is in the future, we won't be afraid that it will flood the people's homes and cause losses. Chu Qingyan smiled and told him her plan. She was inspired by Yu the Great's flood control teacher in history class. However, she didn't remember much at that time, and combined it with her own observations and thoughts, she came to a conclusion. Xiao Su looked at the girl in front of him who was smiling at him. He felt a sense of relief, as if he had a daughter who had just grown up. Chapter 562. The person in front of him was all smiles. She was no longer as naive as before. She had only grown stronger and more motivated. In these few years, she had followed him from the most difficult start to the stability they had today. She had never complained to him and had always gritted her teeth and persevered with him. When they had just arrived at Lian City, it was all in ruins. There wasn't even a clean place to rest. Mu Ling had brought people to repair the prince's residence overnight. She hadn't been idle either. Sometimes, she would help pass this and that. She didn't even care about the heavy rain. When they were building the city gate, she had also accompanied the guards to the front line. It could be said that she had accompanied him step by step to complete Lian City. It could also be said that she had contributed to every transformation of this 100 miles of land. Alright, I will discuss your suggestion with Mr. Ruo. If it can be implemented, I can give the order today. Xiao Su nodded slightly. The little fellow's suggestion was acceptable. However, they needed more precise arrangements to be able to implement it. Chu Qingyan expressed her understanding. She had only proposed a rough plan. To truly implement it, they still needed manpower and resources. She raised her head, revealing a soft and beautiful neck. The beautiful curve stopped at her collar. Xiao Su's gaze inadvertently swept across this scene. His eyes flashed slightly and he looked away without leaving a trace. For some reason, as time passed and the little fellow grew, his gaze would always involuntarily stay on her body. In the past, she was like a branch that had just sprouted. Now, she was like a flower bud that was about to bloom. The petals were covered with sparkling dewdrops, dazzling the eyes. Xiao Su felt very comforted. After all, he had put in so much effort to nurture her. She had grown up to be so pleasing to the eye. It was something to be proud of. It gave him a greater sense of achievement than winning so many battles. However, this feeling had unknowingly changed. As for what it had changed into, he couldn't see through it. However, for now, he would continue like this. If it reached a point where he had no choice but to change, he would think about it again. On the battlefield, the Raging Flame War God was proficient in Qimendo techniques and could see through the enemy's thoughts. In Chu Qingyan's words, his intelligence was off the charts and his looks were off the charts. However, when it came to matters of the heart, he was like an ignorant youth. He could not understand his own feelings at all. He thought that his feelings for Chu Qingyan were just a form of love and care. However, it had been a long time since that love and care had become that kind of love and care. It was understandable that Xiao Su was slow when it came to relationships. After all, he had never paid attention to the women around him and kept them at arm's length. No woman dared to approach him. Even if there were female subordinates, he would treat them as if they were men. Chu Qingyan was just as slow. She could talk about other people's relationships as if she knew everything, but when it came to herself, it was useless. When you're confused, you're just stuck in the game. Only when you understand your own intentions will you be able to jump out of the puzzle. So between the two of them, there was still a long way to go before they could reach their goal. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she was very happy in her heart. What she admired the most about Big Ice Block was that he never looked at family background when choosing people. Just like her, he never looked down on her because she was a woman and looked down on her. That's right, Big Ice Block, I heard Huoling say that you're planning to build a high bridge over the Baiyang River. Why do you suddenly want to build one? I remember there's a bridge over the Baiyang River. When she had brought Xining and Jean Xian out to play, they had even walked over the arch bridge when they passed by the Baiyang River. Xiao Su nodded, but the expression on his face instantly froze. There is indeed a bridge, but when it rained a few days ago, cracks appeared on the bridge and there are signs of it collapsing under the bridge. Now it's forbidden to pass through. If a few more days pass, I'm afraid the bridge won't be able to withstand the load and will collapse. What? Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. Wasn't that bridge built 5 years ago? Why is it collapsing so quickly? As soon as the words came out of her mouth, a few words floated in her mind. Cutting corners. Could it be that the people who built it embezzled public funds and tampered with the materials? Chu Qingyan asked. At this time, Turan walked in with steady steps. After bowing to the two of them, he reported, Master, official Xian has already admitted his guilt. That year, he embezzled the money allocated by the imperial court. When he was building the bridge, the materials he bought were very poor, so the bridge could not last for more than 5 years. Since the evidence is conclusive, put him in prison. The money from the confiscation will be put into Lian City's treasury. Xiao Su immediately ordered without hesitation. Master, I heard that official Xian is the brother-in-law of Prime Minister Fu's son. Turan hesitated for a moment before speaking. At this time, Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. Now that they were in Lian City, it seemed that they were separated from the imperial court. Consort Yu and the others couldn't reach so far and come to Lian City to make an enemy out of them. However, she didn't expect to meet someone from the Fu family here. However, the law was not merciful. If the emperor broke the law, he would be punished the same as the commoners. Even if they had lived peacefully with the Fu family for the past 4 years, they couldn't allow a corrupt official to rule. When Xiao Su heard this, he frowned. This prince doesn't care what his identity is. Since he has committed a crime and landed in this prince's hands, he shouldn't even think about escaping. Turan, do as this prince says. If he dares to resist, there's no need to be polite with him. Chu Qingyan's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. This kind of big ice cube was the most domineering. He never bowed down because of power. Big ice cube, I'm so tired. I'm going to rest. Chu Qingyan stretched and acted coquettishly. At this time, there was only the two of them left in the study. This soft voice was not like the wind in the past. It was like a cat's paw that scratched at his heart. It was itchy and a little numb. Xiao Su turned to look at the sky outside. It was still early. He looked at her with a cold expression. You left the Fu without permission. Although you were on official business, you still went against my orders. So, you are punished to carry 30 caddies of weight and run 10 laps. You can rest when you finish running. What? 10 laps? Chu Qingyan could already see the stars spinning in front of her. There's no bargaining. Go. Xiao Su waved his hand at her. It was already a foregone conclusion. Chu Qingyan could only accept her fate and walk out of the room. At this time, she met Huoling, who was preparing to go in to report. When he saw his little princess consort's dejected appearance, he couldn't help teasing, Master is covered in dark clouds today. Did the dark clouds turn sunny? Chu Qingyan pointed at her face. Seeing me like this, do you still think there's a chance of it turning sunny? Huoling shook his head with a smile. You shouldn't run around in the future. It's not safe outside. Master is just worried about you. Chu Qingyan wanted to cry. She had just been punished a few days ago and she was being punished again today. How could she tell that he was worried about her? Wasn't this worry a little too obvious? Chapter 563. When Chu Qingyan accepted her fate and ran around the prince's residence, the servants in the residence were already used to it. The young Wang Fei was often punished by His Highness. At first, they all thought that the young Wang Fei had fallen out of favor. Some blind people even gossiped. Unfortunately, not long after, she disappeared. Later, in the Wangfu, many servants understood one thing. In this Wangfu, you can offend anyone, but you can't offend His Highness young Wang Fei. Because he can make you pack up and leave at any time. When Chu Qingyan ran the 9th lap, she was still as light as a swallow. She didn't know if it was because of big ice cubes training over the past few years, but she found that her waist wasn't sore and her legs didn't hurt anymore. She also felt more energetic. Just as the last lap was about to be completed, her father scurried out from the side. Kai Kai, look, look. Father caught a cricket. It's so big. This way, I can fight crickets with Huo Ling. The father in front of her was still as handsome as he was 4 years ago. It was as if time hadn't left any traces on him. Chu Qingyan looked at the pitiful cricket in his hand and cleared her throat. Father, daughter thinks that instead of fighting crickets, carving flowers and grass is better. I have Woody. Whatever I want, Woody will carve it for me. It doesn't matter. That's right, I also want Woody to help me make a cage. The cage doesn't need to be too big, but it needs to have a bed because the cricket needs to sleep. It also needs a bathtub and a dressing table. Father Chu answered matter-of-factly as he counted with his fingers. Chu Qingyan thought of Huo Ling, who was pestered to the point of tears by her father a few days ago. She couldn't help but observe a moment of silence for him. Father's condition was sometimes good and sometimes bad. In these 4 years, Yan Luo had been studying his condition. Fortunately, it didn't worsen. Instead, it improved little by little. It was a pity that her father's ability to tease people increased. Huo Ling and the others wouldn't take the initiative to meet him if they could avoid him. As a result, her father was always jumping up and down in the residence looking for traces of Xiao Lai. As she thought about her father's condition, Chu Qingyan suddenly recalled that Sister Yan Luo had sent someone to summon her this morning. Since she had nothing to do now, she took her father to the Yan Garden in the prince's mansion. The Yan Garden was a place specially opened up for her to grow herbs and research poisons. As soon as Chu Qingyan entered, she saw people hoeing in the herb garden. She crossed her arms and leaned against the door. She could not help but laugh. Why are you alone today? Where's Ethereal? What is he doing here? I can handle it myself. Cheng Yanluo wiped the sweat off her forehead and spoke in a cold tone. Chu Qingyan shrugged. The two of them had been in a love-hate relationship for 4 years, but it was still the same. The people around them had been anxious at the beginning, but now, they could make a pot of tea and watch the progress from the side. I heard that the Hollow Man isn't feeling well today. I wonder if it's because he ate something bad, or if he ate something bad. Mr. Chu kept repeating the same sentence over and over again. Cheng Yanluo couldn't help but frown when she heard this. Her expression did not escape Chu Qingyan's eyes. She curled her lips into a smile. These two were really awkward. One clearly liked her very much, but she refused to say it. The other clearly cared about her very much, but he refused to admit it. She couldn't help but think of Yi Lingfeng and Du Guqing, who were far away in the Jiang Kingdom. Back then, everyone thought that Yi Lingfeng wouldn't be able to survive that stab, but Du Guqing didn't give up on him. She stayed by his bed day and night, taking care of him. After 7 days, Yi Lingfeng finally woke up and passed the critical period. Just when everyone thought that this pair of lovers should finally get married, right? However, the two of them did something that made everyone's jaws drop. After Yi Lingfeng recovered from his injuries, he began to confess his feelings to Du Guqing on various occasions and at various times. He didn't care who was standing next to him. Unfortunately, Du Guqing rejected him time and time again. Yi Lingfeng, on the other hand, seemed to become braver with every setback. He came up with endless ways to express his feelings, trying to make her accept him bit by bit. There was once when Chu Qingyan found out that the two of them were still at the stage of confessing and rejecting each other. In a letter, Duguqing asked her why she was tormenting herself. However, Duguqing's answer was that if some things were too easily obtained, the other party wouldn't cherish them. Therefore, she wanted to engrave them in her heart. Chu Qingyan deeply admired these people who had the courage to live a life of love and hate. However, now that they were back to the main topic, when Chu Qingyan asked her why she was looking for her this morning, Qing Yanluo's expression turned serious. I realized that my current treatment method isn't very effective for old Master Chu's illness, so I want to try another method. However, before that, I need to ask for your opinion. Will it be life-threatening? Chu Qingyan asked seriously. No, it's just that the process will be more painful. Qing Yanluo shook her head. Hence, Chu Qingyan turned to ask the person beside her, Father, what do you think? Alright, I want to transform back to my original form to make Dan Yang happy. Transform. Mr. Chu began to spin in circles again. Chu Qingyan nodded at Qing Yanluo. Let's do it your way. Mr. Chu ran out of the garden to play, leaving only Chu Qingyan and Qing Yanluo inside. Sister Yanluo, do you know what I want to do the most right now? Chu Qingyan asked her. What is it? Qing Yanluo washed the dirt off her hands and turned to look at her. The young girl in front of her looked elegant and refined, but her every frown and smile were always charming. The little girl in front of her had already grown up. She was slender, elegant, bright, and lovely. I want to make money. Make a lot of money. Chu Qingyan sighed. Didn't you say that Big Ice Cube is tall, rich, and handsome? Are you saying that he's only tall, handsome, and not rich? Qing Yanluo teased her. Chu Qingyan sighed softly. That was indeed the case in the past. But now, we've invested a lot of manpower and resources into these towns and cities. We've built roads and bridges for the welfare of the people. Plus, we've searched for and processed the mineral resources in Fuli Mountain Range. Big Ice Cube is about to run out of money. Although the fief is slowly starting to reap the harvest, it's just a drop in the bucket. I'm worried that if we have to build a dam soon, we'll really become paupers. Money wasn't everything, but it was absolutely impossible to do anything without it. She could now understand the importance of money. So what do you want to do? Qing Yanluo had always believed in her intelligence and ability. As long as she said it, she would do it, no matter how difficult it was. Her question hit the nail on the head. Chu Qingyan whispered mysteriously, I have a preliminary plan, but I'm not sure if it'll work. Chapter 564. Qing Yanluo's interest was piqued at the mention of a money-making opportunity. Tell me about it. Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes and smiled. Do you remember the Shuoxin lipstick that I asked you to develop? I remember. I always thought that it was pretty good. Qing Yanluo's eyes lit up as if she had thought of something. She turned to look at her for confirmation. Are you thinking of selling it? Chu Qingyan chuckled. What do you think? What do you think? It's a good skincare product regardless of whether it's winter, spring, summer, or autumn. Even men can use it, let alone women. She had thought of this before, but they had been busy looking for herbs at that time. She didn't have the time or energy to do so. Besides, the time and place were not right. Later, she had followed Big Ice Cube to Liancheng. The first thing she had to do was to integrate into the life here and build the infrastructure. She had thought that she could live a life of luxury after hooking up with the tall, rich, and handsome Big Ice Cube. Unfortunately, she had been investing in manpower and resources ever since she arrived in Liancheng. The Fuli mountain range was also a gap, so she had to invest money continuously. It could be said that they had been burning money. However, the iron ore mines in the Fuli mountain range couldn't be stopped. That was what they relied on now and could be used as a bargaining chip in future negotiations with the imperial court. That's right, that's right. But it's easier said than done. It won't be easy to put it on the market. Qing Yanluo raised her doubts. I understand. Everything is difficult at the beginning. I only have a preliminary idea. If I'm sure it's going to be implemented, I'll need a detailed plan. Chu Qingyan winked at Cheng Yenluo mischievously. She continued, besides, the Shuexin lipstick alone won't be enough to satisfy the market. I have a few more that can beautify and protect one's skin. When we find a business opportunity, we can invest in them directly. You have a lot of them. Cheng Yenluo's eyes lit up. Yes. When the time comes, I'll write down the formula and you can develop it into a finished product. You see, we have the technology and production. What we lack is a sales channel. Chu Qingyan stroked her chin and pondered with a frown. They had everything, except for the sales channel. If they could open up the market, even if they didn't make a lot of money, at least they wouldn't suffer a loss. Cheng Yenluo nodded. Do you have any good ideas? I heard that there are many businessmen in Jiangnan. Jiangnan. I want to go to Jiangnan to see if I can find a business opportunity. Cheng Yenluo had wanted to visit Jiangnan for a long time, but she had always been in Jiangnan. The little girl had always been reliable, so Cheng Yenluo had never objected to her decisions. However, when she thought of Xiao Su, who had been taking good care of the little girl for the past few years, she couldn't help but tease, "Do you think your ice cube will allow you to do these things? Is my big ice cube democratic?" Cheng Yenluo shrugged. "I'll wait and see." The matter was over. After all, they couldn't go to Jiangnan in a day or two. Chu Qingyan wanted to talk to Big Ice Cube about this matter after the spring flood. She wanted to give the other formulas to Yenluo first. If she could successfully produce them, she could use them to negotiate with people in Jiangnan. Then, she would have a higher bargaining chip. After they finished talking about business, they began to talk about private matters. It's been a few years. Do you still want to waste time with him? Chu Qingyan asked casually. She plucked a green foxtail and shook it. Cheng Yenluo was squatting down to weed. Her palm was pricked by the thorns on the grass when she touched it. She immediately withdrew her hand and saw a drop of blood on her fingertip. She stared at the drop of blood in a daze for a while before wiping it with a brocade handkerchief. Her complexion had returned to normal. Who says I'm wasting time with him? I just haven't found the right one. Haven't found the right one? You've been surrounded by so many talented and handsome men these past few years. How can you say that you haven't found the right one? Chu Qingyan looked at her in disbelief. Don't tell me you don't like men. Cheng Yenluo rolled her eyes. What are you thinking? This kind of thing depends on mutual affection and fate. How can you just settle for someone? All right, I have nothing to say to that. Chu Qingyan sighed in her heart. In the eyes of outsiders, she was just running away. She was avoiding ethereal, avoiding the past, but not willing to face the future. Such feelings were contradictory, but the crux of the problem was there and no one could solve it. She wanted to be treated wholeheartedly, but in Ethereal's heart, there was also a sense of responsibility. 6 years plus 4 years was already 10 years. 10 years was such a beautiful time for a woman, but she had wasted it on something that wasn't waiting. Chu Qingyan didn't know what she was waiting for. Was she unwilling to give up, or was she unwilling to give up? Chu Qingyan felt uncomfortable every time she saw the two of them getting along with each other awkwardly. But when it came to matters of the heart, outsiders couldn't interfere. By the way, did you dress up as a man again today to swindle people? Rumor has it that Thousand-Face Red Fox is one of the 8 most handsome men. If outsiders know that Thousand-Face Red Fox is just a little girl who is still wet behind the ears, I don't know how many people's eyes will pop out of their sockets. Cheng Yenluo regained her vitality and said with a teasing tone. Chu Qingyan spread her hands and pretended to be a little annoyed. I don't know how I got on the list. I just saved a little girl who was almost hit by a carriage on the street. Word spread like wildfire and I got on the list. Didn't that little girl say that she wanted to devote herself to you? Cheng Yenluo seemed to remember such a thing. I think she was thrown away by a big ice cube. Chu Qingyan couldn't remember clearly. You're even jealous of a girl. Cheng Yenluo couldn't help but sneer. You're so pretty, little girl. When you dress up as a woman, there are so many men kneeling under your skirt. When you dress up as a man, there are so many girls chasing after you. You're attractive to both men and women. Your big ice cube not only has to guard against men, but also against women. It's so cruel. She had to admit that the little girl had changed in the past few years. If she was a budding flower in the past, she was now a delicate peach blossom in full bloom. Her peach blossom was bright and dazzling. If she were a man, she would have taken action and taken such a beautiful girl into her pocket. Unfortunately, there was a very strong protector by her side. Chu Qingyan's face darkened slightly. Don't talk nonsense. My big ice cube won't do that. Our relationship is pure. Pure. Cheng Yenluo seemed to have heard something funny. She covered her mouth and laughed uncontrollably, ignoring the mud on her hands. Chapter 565. Chu Qingyan felt a little uncomfortable from her laughter and couldn't help but push her shoulder. What's so funny? But it was as if Yen Luo's laughing acupoint had been pressed and she couldn't stop laughing. Chu Qingyan could only stomp her feet and leave in a huff. Really, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Cheng Yenluo looked at the little girl's indignant and somewhat fleeing figure and couldn't help but curve her lips again. In the eyes of outsiders, such a clever and cunning person seems to become a different person when she talks about Xiao Su. TSK, TSK, TSK. If that ranking person saw this scene, would he still call her the thousand-faced red fox? These two people's status was so confirmed and they were clearly a couple. But these two people were able to maintain their relationship from 4 years ago until now. Above friends, but not yet lovers. However, these two people probably didn't realize that they were more intimate and sweet than ordinary husband and wife. It was just that they were already used to it, as if they were still in the circle from 4 years ago and hadn't jumped out yet. At this time, there needed to be some kind of collision. Only by shattering it could the two of them see each other clearly in the hazy mist. However, the little girl's question had indeed touched her heart. What was the point of waiting? Perhaps it had already become a habit. She smiled bitterly. Perhaps there had to be someone who was more outstanding than him and understood her better than him to move her heart. Otherwise, she wouldn't be willing to give herself to another person so easily. She rubbed the wound on her fingertip. Although it was small and couldn't be seen, it hurt. It was like there was someone in this world. Although you didn't see him, he still existed in your heart and made you feel pain. A few days passed in a flash. The spring flood came as scheduled. Those few days were rainy and torrential. The source of Luo River came from a high mountain on the border with Junlan. The snow melted and large amounts of snow water flowed into the river, causing the water level to rise. The water was so fierce that it almost caused a flood in 2 days. Fortunately, we used the Little Princess method to open up a river channel and diverted a portion of the water from the middle reaches of Luo River to the wasteland. That's how we managed to disperse such a large amount of water. Otherwise, with the ferocity of this spring flood, even if we increased the height of the dam, it would still be destroyed. Huoling had just returned from Luo River. When he spoke about this matter, his tone was a bit emotional. At this time, everyone was discussing the spring flood in the conference hall and Huoling was the first to speak. Turin nodded. If it weren't for the little princess's idea, we would have suffered a great loss this spring. Not only would the people's houses be destroyed, but this year's harvest would also be affected. Chu Qingyan was a little excited at the high praise from the crowd. However, she was still very calm on the surface because she wanted to show that she was neither arrogant nor discouraged. The spring flood had passed in 2 days. After yesterday's high tide, it would gradually decrease in momentum from today onwards. Once the front was stabilized, there was no need to worry about the back. Arrest all the officials responsible for building Luo River's dam and interrogate them. Make them spit out all the money they took from the people. Xiao Su's expression was a bit heavy at this time and his tone was stern. Because a few days ago, when they were preparing to increase the height of the dam, they suddenly discovered that the construction of the dam had been shoddy. The impact of the river 2 years ago had already caused cracks to appear. It was already lucky that it hadn't collapsed before. This year's spring flood was expected to be fiercer than the last 2 years. This dam couldn't withstand it at all. When the time came, as long as one side collapsed, it wouldn't only affect the people downstream of Luo River, but also the entire city. Therefore, in those few days, the master didn't have a good rest at all. He was in full command to urge everyone to rebuild the dam and strive to get this done before the high tide. Then, after the crisis passed, he would come back and interrogate them one by one. As Xiao Su's assistant, Lu Rui immediately stepped forward to accept the order. Lu Rui used to be Xiao Su's strategist. Now that Xiao Su was in charge of the fief within 100 miles of Lian City, he could appoint people at will. Lu Rui had previously been by his side giving advice, and his performance was outstanding. It could be said that he was an expert in planning and a talent with long sleeves. Therefore, Xiao Su arranged for him to be the Minister of War to assist him in managing the fief. And in these few years, Lu Rui didn't disappoint him. He managed all the big and small affairs of Lian City in an orderly manner. Therefore, Xiao Su basically handed over all the matters to him. After Xiao Su finished assigning tasks, the officials who had received their orders in the meeting hall all left. At this time, only Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su were left. I didn't expect that we would take on such a big mess. Chu Qingyan sighed. When she first arrived, her eyes were filled with desolation. She was stunned and thought that she had come to an isolated island. She was prepared to survive. It could be said that it was a place where chickens lay eggs and birds didn't shit. Fortunately, they had slowly changed everything here step by step. Of course, the investment was huge. Chu Qingyan recalled that she had spent a lot of money to build the dam a few days ago, and her heart ached. I think you're quite happy with yourself. Xiao Su glanced at her before he picked up the brush. She had been running around with him all day long. If it wasn't building the city walls, it was rebuilding the dam, and it was patrolling the fief. He had never seen her complain about being tired or suffering. Chu Qingyan laughed when she heard that. Don't tell me you're going to cry. Even if you cry until you're blind, it's still the same. It can't be changed. It's better to transform it properly. Xiao Su nodded. You're aware. Chu Qingyan smiled complacently. Of course. After speaking, Chu Qingyan suddenly remembered that she had to compete with Jean Xian in the afternoon. Just as she was about to get up and leave, she felt a warm current flowing out from her lower abdomen. Following that, her waist had been sore for the past 2 days. Her waist went soft and she almost couldn't stand properly. Xiao Su, who was sitting behind the desk, felt that something was wrong with her. What's wrong? No. Chu Qingyan held on to the back of the chair and immediately denied it. She was done for. She had a bad premonition. Could it be that her period had come? It was said that women in ancient times usually had their period at the age of 14 or 15. She was already 15 now, so it should be about time. A few days ago, her mother had asked her about it. She didn't expect it to be so soon. However, Chu Qingyan comforted herself. Could it be that she was scaring herself? However, as if to verify her thoughts, a warm current flowed between her thighs. It felt sticky. She had experienced this strange feeling when she was 15 or 16 in modern times. It was too familiar. No, she had to leave this place quickly. Otherwise, if she was discovered by the Big Ice Cube, she would be embarrassed. Big Ice Cube, I have something important to do. I'll leave first. Just as she was about to leave quickly, a thunderous voice sounded from behind her. Wait! Chu Qingyan's feet instantly froze, but she didn't dare to turn around. What's the matter? Are you injured? Xiao Su furrowed his brows and looked at the figure that suddenly tensed up. He smelled the thick smell of blood in the air and his face suddenly sank. Chapter 566. When Xiao Su's words fell, Chu Qingyan's entire body froze in place. Big ice cube, can your nose not be so sharp? Let me go. I want to dig a hole and hide in it. The smile on her lips had already stiffened. At this time, she could not move her body much because her first period was too strong. Also, her abdomen was filled with pain and her face was starting to turn pale. So Chu Qingyan did her best to maintain her current position. She coughed to cover it up. No, nothing. Maybe you're wrong. I'm going back to my room now. I'm a bit tired after running around all day. After saying this, she wanted to slip away. But who could tell her who this wall that suddenly appeared in front of her was? The meat wall in front of her coldly said, "Don't lie to me. Did you get hurt from fighting with someone again?" Chu Qingyan was embarrassed. He said it like she only knew how to fight with people when she went out. I'm really fine. Maybe it floated in from outside. Chu Qingyan's head was filled with black lines as she tried to argue. Also, why was she discussing this with a man? But an explanation was a cover-up, and Xiao Su didn't believe her. The smell was getting stronger and stronger, and it made him frown deeply. He was about to grab her shoulder to check, but she quickly slipped away. Big ice cube, don't worry. It'll be fine in a few days. She let out a sigh of relief that she had successfully escaped. Then when she prepared to sneak away, she felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. She felt dizzy and then she fell unconscious. Xiao Su reached out to catch her unconscious body. He found that her face was terrifyingly pale. Without caring about anything else, he immediately carried her into the room. When he went out, he ran into Hualing. Xiao Su immediately ordered in a deep voice, "Call Miss Cheng." Hualing saw the unconscious little princess in his arms and the bloodstains on his master's sleeve. He was so scared that he immediately ran to call for someone. When Chu Qingyan slowly woke up, she found that she was lying on the bed in her room. At this time, she felt that her entire body was sore and her abdomen was still very uncomfortable. Then, she suddenly remembered what had happened before she fainted. She immediately buried herself in the blanket. How embarrassing. At this moment, a funny voice came from the side. Why are you hiding? Your big ice cube isn't here. I really admire you. Even a menstrual cycle can cause you to faint. Upon hearing Yan Luo's voice, Chu Qingyan pulled down the blanket to get some fresh air. Her face was still flushed. I don't know why my body is so weak. You haven't had a good night's sleep for the past few days because of the spring flood. You even went to Luo River to supervise the maintenance of the dam. How can your little body take it? Cheng Yan Luo walked to her bedside and handed her a cup of warm brown sugar ginger water. Chu Qingyan got up and took the bowl with both hands, trying to use the heat to drive away the coldness in her fingers. She defended herself, how would I know that this thing would come at this time? If I knew, I would have stayed at home obediently. TSK, TSK, TSK. Didn't we already foresee this? Don't you feel that your body is a little tired recently? Cheng Yan Luo looked at her with her arms crossed, her tone exasperated. I've been too busy recently and neglected it. Chu Qingyan felt that her scalp was a little tight. This is what happens when you don't take care of your body. Even we were shocked by you. I'm afraid that the entire prince's residence is talking about you fainting. Cheng Yan Luo looked at her and shook her head. The entire prince's residence? Chu Qingyan bit the edge of the bowl, her cheeks starting to redden again. His Highness knows that I fainted because, she wanted to say something but stopped. How could Qing Yanluo not know what she was thinking? She said with some mischief, "Of course he knows. You fainted, but you don't know how anxious your big ice cube was when he saw that you were unconscious. But when I found out the reason, I thought back to his face just now. It was as black as the bottom of a pot." When she rushed over, several plum blossoms had bloomed on Xiao Su's sleeves. She thought that something big had happened because Xiao Su's face was so ugly. When she finished examining him, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When she told him the truth, she realized that Xiao Su was stunned. Someone like him who didn't show his emotions was stunned. Then, an unnatural expression appeared on his face. Before she could see it clearly, she heard him instruct her to take good care of Qing Yan. Then, he quickly got up and left. She felt like she was fleeing. So many emotions had happened to Xiao Su in such a short period of time. It was simply inconceivable. She had to admit that if there was someone in the world who could make Xiao Su's face change, it could only be this person. Chu Qingyan covered her head with the blanket again. "I don't want to live anymore, I don't want to live anymore. How can I face people in front of His Highness in the future? No, it's not just Xiao Su. I'm afraid everyone in the prince's residence knows." Cheng Yanluo unhurriedly added another stab. Chu Qingyan's shouting paused, and then she wailed, "I don't want to live." Cheng Yanluo couldn't help but laugh and shake her head. At this moment, Xiao Su had just changed his clothes when he heard a servant report that the young princess Consort had woken up. If it was the old him, he would already be on his way to see her. But now, he was a little hesitant. At that time, he thought that she was injured. In the end, the answer was that she was having her period, which a woman of her age should experience. He was a little dumbfounded on the spot. He had never come into contact with a woman before. Almost all the people who served him since he was young were men. When he went out to train and lead troops in the military camp, it was even more impossible for there to be a woman by his side. So he didn't understand these things and was very unfamiliar with them. Now that he was told that his little fellow wasn't injured, but had her period, he actually felt a little dazed and at a loss. This feeling was very unfamiliar. He didn't know how to adjust, so at this moment, he chose to properly sort out this strange feeling. Even if he hadn't eaten pork, he had seen pigs run. He more or less knew that this kind of thing was a very painful thing for a woman. This was because when the little fellow was in his arms, she was constantly frowning. Moreover, she was very uncomfortable. If she didn't take care of it well, she would have a lifelong illness. Xiao Su originally wanted to ask Cheng Yanluo how to take care of the little fellow during this period of time. But when he thought of the teasing look she gave him today, he dismissed the idea. Then who should he ask for advice? Fire spirit? Turan? Wood spirit? They had been by his side since he was young. If he didn't know about this kind of thing, it was even more impossible for them to know. It was a pity that water spirit wasn't by his side. However, he couldn't bring himself to ask water spirit about this kind of thing. Xiao Su had never felt such a headache before. Moreover, it was because of a woman's affairs. Finally, he thought of someone. Someone who already had a family, he would definitely understand. That was Father Chu. Poor Xiao Su. In his desperation, he actually thought of Father Chu. Chapter 567. Xiao Su was a person who did what he said. He walked out the door and asked Hu Ling about Father Chu's whereabouts. When he learned that he was playing in Mu Ling's courtyard, he walked over without hesitation. Hu Ling saw that his master didn't go to the little princess consort's room and instead went to find Father Chu. He couldn't understand this, but when he wanted to follow, his master coughed and rejected him. Hu Ling was even more confused. Why did it feel like his master was going to be a thief? No. How could he think of his master like that? He must have been too busy these past 2 days, that's why he had such a misconception. It must be like that. While Hualing was thinking nonsense, his master had already left far away. The King of England had a courtyard that was specially designed for Hualing. This place also became a place that Father Chu frequented. The scene that appeared every day played out again. Ancestor, ancestor, that's not for weeding. AI, ancestor, you can't touch that. The servants were already used to this wailing and pleading. Because every day, Lord Muling would suffer from Master Chu's torture. Even though Lord Muling was still young, his hair was about to turn white from worry. He could be seen pulling at his own hair every day. But that Master Chu never got tired of it. When Xiao Su came in, he saw this scene. Muling, can this bird fly? After saying that, Father Chu's hand lost strength and the wooden bird was thrown out. That was just made, I haven't put on the wings yet. Muling couldn't stop it in time and couldn't help covering his face. That flying bird landed beside a pair of boots that suddenly appeared. Master. Muling didn't think that his master would come to his courtyard. Scallion in reverse. Father Chu happily ran over and asked in a serious and expectant tone, "Are you here to find father?" Muling couldn't help but roll his eyes. His master appeared here, of course he was here to find him. How could he be here to find Father Chu? But he didn't think that the master in front of him would nod. Looking at Father Chu, who turned around and made a face at her before leaving with her master, Wood Spirit began to have the same misconception as Hualing. Something seemed wrong with her master today. Could it be that he had opened it the wrong way today? At this time, Xiao Su had brought Chu Machen's father to a pavilion in the mansion. Sit. Xiao Su invited him to take a seat. Mr. Chu nodded and sat on the chair obediently. Then, he casually grabbed a piece of plum blossom cake from the table and took a bite. He spoke with a lisp, "I heard that when there's a flood, there will be a lot of fish. Help me make a fishing net, and then you'll accompany me to fish, okay?" "It's not a flood. It's a spring flood." Xiao Su corrected him without thinking. "You can have the wood spirit make the fishing net for you. If you want to go fishing, you have to bring some guards. It's not safe to go alone." At this time, Xiao Su had something on his mind, so he didn't think too much and directly answered him. "Oh." Chu Machen's father was a bit disappointed. His son-in-law always refused to make him a fishing net. Even Little Blossom would catch mice for her father-in-law. However, Chu Machen's mood left as quickly as it came. He finished the cake in a few bites, then tilted his head to look at his distracted son-in-law in front of him. "Inverted scallion, do you have something that you need daddy's help with?" Xiao Su was a bit unaccustomed to Chu Machen's cleverness. "How did you know? Could it be that he was being too obvious?" "Because the weasel pays a New Year's visit to the chicken. He definitely doesn't have any good intentions." Chu Machen's father pretended to be serious as he told his son-in-law the proverb he learned from the wood spirit today. Xiao Su's eyes twitched when he heard this. It should be, "One doesn't visit a temple without a cause." It's all the same. Chu Machen's father chuckled as he waved his hand. Xiao Su didn't argue with him about the usage of this proverb. After thinking for a moment, he said somewhat bitterly, "Do you know what you should pay attention to when it's inconvenient to have your period?" "Ah!" Chu Machen's father suddenly shouted, "Son-in-law, you're having your period." Xiao Su felt like a flock of crows were flying over his head. Did he ask the wrong person? Was it too late to turn around and leave now? "No, it's Kai Kai." Xiao Su braced himself and said, "Kai Kai." Chu Machen's father stood up immediately. His face was full of surprise and shyness, then he sat down again. Xiao Su couldn't understand Chu Machen's father's actions at all. Chu Machen's father suddenly said to him very seriously, "Let me tell you a piece of good news. My Kai Kai is all grown up. She can get married and have children. Daddy can hold a grandchild now." "Oh, no, it's a maternal grandchild." "That's great." Xiao Su didn't know that there was such a saying when women were having their period. He was very surprised. After Chu Machin's father calmed down, he secretly whispered into his son-in-law's ear, "Son-in-law, did you know? You can have children with Kai Kai now." Xiao Su was stunned. He was completely dazed by his father's words. "What's wrong, Chu Machin? You don't look right. Is it hot? Why is your face red?" Chu Machin's father looked at his son-in-law. His skin, which was usually as white as ice cream, was now rosy, like a peach hanging from a branch. Xiao Su stood up with a whoosh. "Nothing. I suddenly remembered that there's something I haven't done yet. I'll go take care of it first." Hey. Son-in-law, don't go. I haven't told you what to pay attention to yet." Chu Machin's father yelled at Chu Machin's back, but he found that the more he spoke, the faster his son-in-law walked. Strange. There were no dogs chasing after him. Why was his son-in-law walking so fast? Chu Machin's father couldn't understand, but he felt that it was a good thing that Kai Kai was having her period. He had to report this to Dan Yang as soon as possible. Chu Machin's father took the plate of pastries from the table and ran back quickly. At this moment, Xiao Su, who felt a rush of heat in his head, only cared about walking forward. When he came back to his senses, he found that he was already at the door of the little fellow's room. He suddenly didn't know how to walk. Xining came over with a bowl of hot porridge in her hand. When she saw His Highness standing at the door like a log, she felt a little strange. However, she suddenly remembered that the lotus seed soup was still simmering on the stove for her mistress. She immediately walked in front of His Highness and handed the plate in her hand to him. "Your Highness, this is for mistress. She hasn't eaten much today." In the past, whenever her master had a headache or fever, it was always His Highness who was in charge of taking care of her. Therefore, Xining handed the plate over to His Highness and ran off on her own. Xiao Su subconsciously took the plate and looked at the hot porridge and vegetables in his hand. For the first time, he felt that he didn't know how to cook. "Xining, are you outside? Help me get a hot water bottle. It's so cold." Chu Qingyan's weak voice came from inside, which made Chu Machin's heart ache. Chapter 568. The weak voice inside made Xiao Su's heart tremble. Without thinking much, he carried the tray into the room. Chu Qingyan heard footsteps and thought it was Xining. She forced herself to sit up. This was the first time she had experienced what menstrual cramps felt like. In the past, whenever her roommates had menstrual cramps, they would be admitted to the hospital for intravenous drips. She was very glad that she could run, jump, and eat when her period came. But now that she was experiencing it, she felt as though she had been scooped out of cold water in the middle of winter. When her hands slipped weakly and she almost fell, a pair of large hands suddenly reached out to support her shoulders and helped her lean against the bed wall. Chu Qingyan was a little slow to react. When did Xining become so strong? Then she lifted her head and was instantly shocked. A big ice cube. Chu Qingyan's shock did not escape Xiao Su's eyes. He coughed softly and got up. "Are you okay?" The moment he said that, the two of them instantly fell into an awkward situation. This was the first time Chu Qingyan felt shy in front of him. It was a little difficult to talk about such things. "I am okay. I'm just a little weak and uncomfortable. I'm afraid of the cold." Chu Qingyan lowered her head. She was already roaring in her heart. God, what the hell was she talking about? She was actually discussing such things with a guy one day. Xiao Su originally felt a little unnatural, but when he saw her pale lips and pale face, he immediately abandoned those thoughts. He sat down and looked at her with furrowed brows. "What can I do to make you feel better?" She could hear the seriousness and concern in his voice. Although Chu Qingyan was still a little embarrassed, she thought about how he had seen her fall and make a fool of herself over the past 5 years. It was not that he had not seen her fall or make a fool of herself. It was just that this was the first time that she had done so. Her uneasiness faded a little. Give me that hot water bottle. It's just a bag filled with hot water. Chu Qingyan gestured with her hands. Today, she asked Xining to sew it according to the appearance of modern hand warmers. However, this girl just said that she was going to change the water, and now she was nowhere to be seen. Xiao Su looked around the room but didn't find the geothermal water bag she mentioned. His face darkened. Is it really cold? He returned to sit in front of her after a fruitless search. Yes. It was winter when the snow was melting, and it was even colder than a snowy day. Chu Qingyan hugged herself under the blanket. Not only was she cold, but her waist was also aching. She did not know why. She had been practicing martial arts diligently for the past few years, but now, she was very afraid of pain. The pain in her lower abdomen made her want to roll around on the bed. She did not even have the strength to answer. Xiao Su could clearly feel that she was holding on. He frowned and said, I'll help you call Miss Cheng. Just as he stood up, he felt his sleeve being tugged. He looked down and saw a slender, snow-white hand tugging at his sleeve. His gaze followed her hand and heard her say weakly, no need. This is a very normal thing. It'll be over after a while. But when she thought about having to go through this terrible 7 days every month, Chu Qingyan felt like she had nothing left to live for. Xiao Su heard her say this and thought for a moment before sitting down again. He originally wanted to give her some porridge, but looking at the situation, it was obvious that she couldn't eat anything. He still had a lot of things to do, but when he saw her forehead sweating and her fingers gripping the blanket so tightly that the tips of her fingers turned white, he couldn't get up. The person in front of him usually had big, mischievous eyes, but at this moment, they were squinting weakly. The luster was hidden, but it revealed a rarely seen weakness, which made people unable to help but feel pity for her. When he first met this little fellow, she was only 10 years old. After a year of twists and turns and 4 years of growth, she was now a graceful 15-year-old young lady. But the woman who should have been raised in the boudoir and enjoyed doting on had followed him and suffered all kinds of hardships, but he had never seen her weak and painful side. Now that he saw her forcefully enduring the pain, Xiao Su's heart unknowingly melted into a puddle of water. Big ice cube, why don't you knock me out? That way, I won't feel the pain. Chu Qingyan was in so much pain that she was about to lose consciousness. She didn't think that this kind of labor pain would be so unbearable, so she couldn't help but ask the person beside her for help. Where is it cold? Where does it hurt? His eyes were full of worry. Stomach. Chu Qingyan took a long time to hear what he was asking. At this moment, she gritted her teeth and replied. Xiao Su nodded, then he lifted her quilt and reached his hand in. Suddenly, Chu Qingyan felt that her stomach seemed to be touched by something warm. She subconsciously said, a little lower, a little lower. Yes, there, it's so comfortable. Xiao Su felt the soft skin under his fingers through the cloth, but at this moment, he dismissed the distracting thoughts that shouldn't be in his mind. He wholeheartedly channeled his energy into his palm, and then transmitted the heat to her body through conduction. Chu Qingyan was in a daze. She felt a warm flow from her lower abdomen into her body, and then it flowed through her entire body. The cold in her body was immediately dispelled, and she felt her whole body suddenly become warm. Seeing the colorless paleness on her face fade a little, and a faint red light appear, Xiao Su didn't stop, and continued to transmit the heat to her. It wasn't until the pain on her face faded and her breathing became even that Xiao Su stopped. When he was about to withdraw, a pair of soft and boneless hands suddenly grabbed his hand, not letting him leave. Xiao Su's body was slightly startled, and he looked at the person on the bed with some surprise. He saw that she was already deeply asleep, and there was a sweet smile on her mouth. The corner of his mouth couldn't help but float up into a faint smile. But the touch from his hand made him a little absent-minded. He didn't know when it started, but he started to avoid arousing suspicion with the little fellow. In the past, she would often take his hand and stroll around, but now she had learned to keep a distance from him. Could it be that this was the difference between a child and an adult? Xiao Su was a little puzzled. But this kind of change was formed invisibly, as if the two were deliberately maintaining it. However, when he felt the little girl's rare attachment, Xiao Su felt a long-lost sense of satisfaction in his chest. This kind of feeling of being needed was really something that he hadn't felt for a long time. Although the little girl would still stick by his side like before, she rarely showed the dependence she had in the past. At this time, Turin's voice sounded from outside. "Master, there is an important matter to report from Fuli mountain range." Turin's voice was a little anxious. Xiao Su didn't think much, and withdrew his hand from her lower abdomen. He helped her adjust the quilt, and after confirming that she wouldn't catch a cold, he got up and left in large strides. The person on the bed was sleeping soundly, and only felt as if she was hugging a heater. Then she slowly drifted off to sleep. Chapter 569. When Xiao Su went out, Turin was already waiting at the door. "What's the matter?" Xiao Su asked. "Lu Yu, who is in charge of mining in the Fuli mountain range, sent someone to deliver a letter. The person who delivered the letter is now in the meeting hall," Turin reported as he walked. Xiao Su nodded, and the two of them headed to the meeting hall. As soon as Xiao Su entered the meeting hall, a servant in green standing in the middle of the hall knelt down and saluted, "Your Highness. Lu Yu sent you here." Xiao Su sat down on the main seat and asked. "Lord Lu ordered me to deliver the letter. This is Lord Lu's token." As he spoke, the servant in green took out a jade pendant. Turin took it and returned it to him after confirming that there was no mistake. "Where's the letter from Lu Yu?" Xiao Su didn't beat around the bush and asked directly. Lu Yu was a young man who had sought refuge with Xiao Su 2 years ago. He was responsible, upright, and talented, but he hadn't been successful. Later, when he saw Xiao Su building roads and forests in Lian City, he sent an invitation to become his disciple. Xiao Su saw that he was bold and careful, so after a year of consideration, he put him in charge of mining in the Fuli mountain range. Speaking of ore, they had accidentally discovered a large amount of ore buried under the mountain. It could be said that the Sichuan emperor had unintentionally planted a willow and it had turned into a shade. However, the ore wasn't easy to mine, and it required a lot of manpower and resources. At the same time, to prevent the people in the capital from finding out, Xiao Su ordered people to mine in secret. In the past 2 to 3 years, they had only mined less than 1/5 of the ore. However, the mining of ore was the most important thing for them at the moment. This was because everyone knew that in the next 2 years, the Sichuan emperor would definitely do something. In order to support the 4th prince as the crown prince, he would eliminate dissidents. He would do anything, and the refining of ore was what they relied on. They could attack or retreat. Xiao Su didn't like to chase after fame and fortune, but it didn't mean that he was a paper tiger that could be bullied by others. Moreover, he had someone he wanted to protect. In the past, he could let them do whatever they wanted, and he could stay out of it. But now, it was different. Even he couldn't stand their unrestrained ambition. As long as they didn't offend him, he could tolerate it. However, everyone knew that this seemingly peaceful situation would be broken sooner or later. Xiao Su opened the letter written by Lu Yu. It was written in code. If one wasn't taught by him, they wouldn't be able to understand the words. The letter said that they had discovered a very special type of ore in the past few days. It could be used to forge weapons that could be broken with a single blow. Furthermore, it was more durable than the previous weapons. They hoped that he would make a trip to the Fuli mountains when he had the time. Xiao Su skimmed through the letter and handed it to Turin. After Turin scanned through it, he was pleasantly surprised. "Master, this is a good thing. If these weapons are sharper and more durable than the ones we use, then it would be like adding wings to a tiger for war." Xiao Su's face also showed a hint of joy. "That's right. We'll set off for the Fuli Mountains in 3 days. He wanted to see the results of the forging with his own eyes. Yes, I'll go and prepare for the trip in 3 days. Turan accepted the order with a smile. After the people in the meeting hall left, Xiaosu stood by the window with his hands behind his back. Although it was already early spring, the breeze that came from the front was still mixed with the coldness of winter. It was drizzling, and the distant mountain peak was already shrouded in a thin mist, making it difficult to see its appearance. Xiaosu was no longer as happy as before. His expression was somewhat complicated. He looked in the direction of the capital with a heavy gaze. He hoped that one day, they wouldn't have to meet on the battlefield. After all, the person holding the sword against him was his close relative. In a magnificent palace, palace servants went in and out. They were either carrying baths, clothes, or bath towels in their hands. Following the direction that the palace servants went in, there was a bathhouse surrounded by mist. A strong figure was faintly discernible in the mist. You can all leave. After the palace servants put down the things in their hands, that person slowly opened his mouth. His voice was like the sound of ancient bells. It was slightly low, but there was a kind of deep and continuous pleasant to the ears. Yes. The palace servants heard and left in an orderly manner. After a while, the sound of splashing water could be heard. A head of black hair hung down from the back of his head. The ends of the hair fell into the water and slowly spread out, like a drop of ink falling on the surface of the water. Then, it slowly spread out. That person cupped the water and splashed it on his face. Then, he wiped it away with one hand. The water droplets slid down his bronze skin, rippling with an attractive luster. At this time, he closed his eyes as if he was enjoying this comfortable hot spring bath. His sculpted facial features were peerlessly handsome, but there was a faint arrogance between his eyebrows, as if he didn't put anything in his eyes. At this time, a figure silently appeared outside the screen. Then, he half knelt and said, "Your Highness, I have something to report." The person bathing in the water slowly opened his eyes. Those deep blue eyes were as unfathomable as the sea. His voice was slightly raised, with a bit of cruelty and coldness. "Oh. About what?" "Sichuan, the King of England." The person behind the screen immediately replied. That person raised his eyebrows and then got up from the water. Water splashed everywhere, like a beauty coming out of the bath. The water droplets covered his body bit by bit, but it was as if they couldn't stand still. The droplets slid down one by one, leaving long trails of water on his strong forehead and bronze skin. From his cheeks to his neck, chest, lower abdomen, his long hair hung down, and the water droplets at the ends of his hair fell drop by drop. And the water just happened to submerge his body, covering all the places that made people daydream. His sexy body made people spurt blood. Step by step, he walked to the shore. Then, with a stretch of his arm, the clothes that were placed on the chair by the shore flew over. Then, the wide clothes spread out like wings, draping over his bronze slender body. At this moment, he had already jumped onto the shore. The clothes just happened to hang down, wrapping his entire body within. He stroked the long hair on his shoulders and then walked out. "Speak." He walked past the people kneeling on the ground and walked out of the hot spring room. When he reached the main seat in the hall, he sat down. That subordinate got up and followed behind him, then reported dutifully, "Your Highness, you've always asked us to pay attention to the Sichuan King of England's movements. Now, a subordinate who's closely monitoring the King of England's movements has sent a secret report that the person in charge of mining in the Fuli mountain range sent a secret letter to Xiaosu a few days ago. We don't know if he found anything. I've specially come to report and ask you to make a decision." Sichuan Emperor used the mining matter to send Xiaosu away in order to consolidate his position. This Xiaosu isn't stupid and knows how to retreat in the face of adversity. But this prince doesn't believe that he'll obediently be a sucker. Unless there's something in the Fuli mountain range that's attracting him, otherwise, if the Sichuan emperor turns hostile in the future, he'll just be a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. The man curled his lips into a smile. Then what does your highness want to do? The subordinate asked doubtfully. This prince wants to personally make a trip to the Fuli mountain range, he said powerfully. He, Pang Huang, had long wanted to see that Sichuan god of war. Was this Sichuan god of war more powerful, or was his southern Sung war god better? Chapter 570. Chu Qingyan woke up after a good night's sleep and realized that she felt much better. But when she turned around, she saw her mother sitting on a chair and looking at her worriedly. Seeing that she had woken up, she hurried over. Kai Kai, how are you feeling? Mrs. Chu's mother was full of worry. She smiled and said, Mother, I feel much better. It's not that painful anymore, but I'm a little hungry. Xining, who was beside her, immediately went to the kitchen to heat up the food and bring it up. Mrs. Chu looked at her daughter, who had recovered, and heaved a sigh of relief. She said with some lingering fear in her voice, Today, your father told me that you had fainted from the pain. I was so scared that I rushed over to take a look. But you were already asleep at that time, so I waited for you to wake up. It's all in the past. Other than feeling a little uncomfortable, I'm fine. I just didn't expect my first time to hurt so much. Chu Qingyan rubbed her nose. She really felt bad for making her family worry. Mrs. Chu poked her finger and said, Why did you have to go through so much trouble? Mrs. Chu couldn't help but poke her daughter's forehead with her finger. Her voice was full of pity and disappointment. Who told you to go and see the dam in the heavy rain? You must have caught a cold. I've told you before to take good care of yourself during this period of time. Maybe your period will come. But you didn't listen to me and went on your own way. Just wait and see, the first time is very important. If it hurts, you will feel uncomfortable every month. You're asking for trouble. Although her mother was reprimanding her, she could hear the concern and heartache in her voice. She couldn't help but tilt her head and lean on her mother's shoulder. She said coquettishly, Mother, I was wrong. I won't do it next time. In the future, I'll treat your words like an imperial edict and obey them. Mrs. Chu really couldn't do anything about her obedient and coquettish daughter. Just then, Xining came in with the food. Master, you should eat the food while it's still hot. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes and looked at her mother who was still sighing for her. She immediately softened her tone and said, Nyangqin, I don't have any strength. Can you feed your daughter? Chu Machin's mother couldn't help laughing when she saw her daughter, who was no longer a child, acting like a spoiled child and asking for food. However, her daughter had always been independent and self-reliant. As a mother, she had always been taken care of by her daughter. Now that she saw this side of her daughter, her motherly love overflowed. She said that her daughter wasn't shy and took the bowl and spoon from Chu Machin's hands. When Xining saw this scene, she couldn't help but cover her mouth and snicker, but she was glared at by her master. Nyangqin is so good. Chu Qingyan contentedly swallowed her first mouthful of porridge. Mrs. Chu smiled and shook her head, but she was very pleased with her daughter's praise. After finishing the bowl of porridge, Chu Qingyan still wanted more. Mrs. Xining wiped the water from the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief and seemed to have thought of something. She turned to Xining and said, Go and boil a bowl of ginger water for Kai Kai. Yes. Xining obeyed and left. When only the two of them were left in the room, Chu Qingyan looked at her mother with a smile. Nyangqin, you deliberately sent Xining away, didn't you? You mischievous girl. Mrs. Chu didn't deny it. She looked at her daughter, who was becoming more and more outstanding, and felt as if she was looking at herself when she was 15 or 16 years old. She felt a little emotional. Kai Kai, do you know what it means when your period comes? Mrs. Chu looked at her with a serious expression. It was rare for her mother to be so serious. She thought that her mother wouldn't ask such a question for no reason. Hence, Chu Qingyan stopped smiling and started to think about the answer to this question. However, she rejected all the answers. Finally, she shook her head at her mother. When Mrs. Chu saw this, she reached out and stroked her long hair. She said earnestly, "When your period comes, it means that our Kai Kai has grown up and is no longer a little girl. When a girl reaches this stage, her family can help her find a marriage partner. Then, with the help of her parents and a matchmaker, she can get married and raise her children." Chu Qingyan didn't expect her mother to be talking about this. She looked away unnaturally. "Nyangqin, I'm only 15 years old. It's still too early for me to get married and have children." "It's not early anymore. Usually, girls from other families are already married by this time. Your mother also married your father at this time." Mrs. Chu shook her head and explained. "But I haven't had enough of being single. Although getting married and having children is a big thing in life, I still have to have enough fun and settle down before I consider this." Chu Qingyan didn't expect that she would one day discuss this with her mother. She remembered that when she was in university, her father, who was far away in the army, asked her to bring a son-in-law for him to see. Unfortunately, she had never been in a relationship and didn't know what it felt like to be in love with someone of the opposite sex. Hence, she was still very shy to talk about this now. Mrs. Chu also couldn't bear to part with her daughter. However, she smiled and patted her daughter's hand gently. She said lovingly, "But other girls still have to find a marriage partner. We don't have to. The Emperor Emeritus's betrothal is quite good. His Highness is a good child. Nyangqin is very relieved to hand you over to him. When you want to get married, let me know. I'll definitely arrange it properly for you." Chu Qingyan was in a daze. She didn't understand what her mother was saying at all. After a while, Mrs. Chu remembered that her husband was still playing with the kitten in the courtyard. She got up and let her have a good rest. Just as she was about to leave, Chu Qingyan heard a light sentence. "His Highness waited for Kai Kai for 5 years. It wasn't easy." Did she open her ears in the wrong way? Why did she hear such strange words? Big Ice Cube didn't have that kind of feelings for her, right? It was just the feelings a big brother had for a little sister. She recalled the words she heard under the windowsill last year. It completely darkened her world. She ran her fingers through her hair. She felt that this matter was making her a little irritable, so she simply turned her grief and anger into appetite. "Xining, I want to eat spicy chicken, spicy fish, vinegar pork ribs, mapo tofu, sour and spicy shredded potatoes." She blurted out the names of dishes one after another. During menstruation, the body's functions were depleted quickly and it was easy for her to get hungry. Moreover, she could eat a lot of things that she didn't dare to eat on normal days. Most importantly, she wouldn't gain weight. That was why she didn't care about anything else and ordered so many dishes. Xiao Su was just about to enter when he heard her order. His brows immediately furrowed. "You have to avoid certain foods during this period. You can't eat anything spicy." When Chu Qingyan saw him, she was reminded of what happened last year. Coupled with the fact that she wasn't feeling well, she became angry all of a sudden. "You don't want me to eat, so I'm going to eat more. Haven't you heard that even rabbits get angry when they're hungry?" Chapter 571. Chu Qingyan's rebuke surprised Xiao Su a little. People in power were used to controlling everything, and his starting point was for her own good. Hearing her words, Xiao Su's face turned a little ugly. As soon as his face darkened, Chu Qingyan's face became a little embarrassed. She coughed lightly to cover up her unkind tone. "I just want to eat these things. You have to take care of me, a patient. You're already an adult. Don't you know how to take care of yourself?" Xiao Su walked in front of her and looked at her condescendingly. Chu Qingyan raised her head to look at him. She felt very oppressed like this, and the trace of grievance in her heart began to grow. "I can take care of myself. You don't have to worry about me," she said a little angrily. very few people dared to provoke him to his face. Just as Xiao Su was about to reprimand her, he saw her stubborn little face turn pale, and the trace of unhappiness in his heart immediately dissipated. He remembered that Chu Yunqing's father had specifically told him that women were usually more irritable, easily angered, and unreasonable during these few days, just like menopause. That was why he had given him the 6-syllable mantra, telling him to be more forgiving and obedient. Although he didn't know what menopause was, the symptoms that Father Chu had mentioned were indeed verified one by one on the little fellow. But he had been humiliated by the little fellow. At this time, he wanted to speak to her nicely, but he couldn't bring himself to do so. However, when she lowered her head and looked so delicate, he really couldn't get angry at her. In the end, he could only compromise. If you want to eat those things, wait until you're better, then let the kitchen prepare them for you. Chu Qingyan thought that she had heard wrongly. She raised her head to look at him in disbelief. In the past, when she contradicted him, she was always reprimanded by him. When was there such good treatment as now, and he could even talk to her calmly? But I want to eat now. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. When people were uncomfortable, they would be more clingy than before. They would become more sentimental and fragile. Xiao Su frowned, but at this moment, he remembered Father Chu's 6-word mantra, be more forgiving and more obedient. You can eat, but you can only choose one dish. Xiao Su gave in. Chu Qingyan immediately smiled. Okay, I want to eat spicy chicken. Yes. Everyone took a step back. This was how they had always gotten along. Coincidentally, Xi Ning came in. Xiao Su told her to inform the kitchen, but told her to only prepare one dish a day. The rest of the dishes should be light and light. Although Chu Qingyan disagreed with Xiao Su's arrangement, a wise man submits to circumstances. If she resisted, everything would be ruined. Did anything happen today? Chu Qingyan held the hot water bottle and looked at him with her big wet eyes. Xiao Su had already sat down on the chair in front of her. When he heard her question, he reached out and smoothed out the creases on his knees. He said indifferently, take care of your body. I will take care of these things. I'm still your strategist. Don't separate public and private matters, okay? Chu Qingyan was a little unhappy. All these years, she had been by his side in men's clothing, acting as his strategist. So outside, they all knew his strategist, Chu Qingyan, but not Chu Qingyan. That was why she was on the 8 Great Handsome Men list. Thousand-Face Red Fox. This title was not bad. She was the scheming and quick-witted Chu Qingyan. Hearing her say this, Xiao Su remembered that he was going to Fuli mountain range in 2 days. She would find out sooner or later, so he did not hide the discovery of the special mine from her. So powerful? If this kind of mine can be mass-produced, then our killing power will be several times greater than before. Chu Qingyan could not help but exclaim. On the battlefield, a soldier's ability was very important. However, divine weapons could allow them to unleash their abilities to the extreme. It was like adding wings to a tiger. Then, their fighting strength would greatly increase. Her eyes shone brightly, like a fox that had seen its prey. She was excited, and her appearance was very cute. Xiao Su saw this and could not help but smile. You can say that, but Lu Yu is not sure how many of these mines there are. This time, I plan to go and see for myself. Chu Qingyan could understand the importance of this mine to them. It was their current protective talisman. Sichuan Emperor did not know that he had accidentally given them a big gift, so not only did they have to keep it a secret, they also had to quickly mine it. Now, time was life. How much they had now, how much they could use in the future would represent how much bargaining chips they had on the table. All right, I'll go with you. Chu Qingyan hugged the hot water bag and decided with a smile. However, she did not expect Xiao Su to reject her. No, the Fuli mountain range has a complicated terrain. Moreover, it intersects with several countries. It's not convenient to travel. You should stay in Lian City and help me look after my fief. Are you worried that I will become a burden to you? Right now, my strength is on par with Turin and Hualing. I have no problem protecting myself. These few years of hard work in martial arts was not for nothing. Chu Qingyan puffed up her cheeks and snorted. He had seen her hard work these few years. Other girls were still sleeping in the morning, but she had already woken up early to train. At night, other girls had already fallen asleep, but she was still in the study room reading military books. His training method for her was based on Xiao Lai's. He did not slack off or show her any mercy because of her special status. Fortunately, she had never disappointed him. I'm not worried that you will be a burden, but I need someone to look after my fief and deal with some urgent matters when I'm not around. Actually, he was worried that there might be some accidents along the way. It would be safer for her to stay in her fief, and he would be more at ease. It's all right. Don't we still have Mr. Roa and Lu Rui? I'll be more at ease if I leave it to them. Moreover, haven't we already taken care of most of the matters related to the fief? Chu Qingyan tried to persuade him. Xiao Su watched as she racked her brains to think of a way to make him agree. After thinking for a moment, he asked, "Do you really want to go?" Chu Qingyan was still racking her brains to think of a reason. When she heard his question, she immediately nodded vigorously, "I want to. I haven't even been to the Fuli mountain range before. I want to go and experience it first." Xiao Su suddenly remembered that he had promised her a trip to Jiangnan. In the end, he did not fulfill his promise, and he felt a little guilty. If it were not for the unforeseen event that caused him to change his plans at the last minute, perhaps they would already be traveling around the great rivers and mountains. Unfortunately, plans could never keep up with changes. All right, we'll set off in 3 days. Are you sure your body can take it? Xiao Su was still a little worried. Chu Qingyan patted her chest and promised, "No problem. This is a small matter. I guarantee that I'll be full of energy and full of vitality in 3 days." Xiao Su was amused by her appearance and shook his head in laughter. For years of growth might have changed her appearance and height, but there were some things that could not be changed with the passage of time. That was her nature. Don't forget your original intentions and stay true to yourself. Chapter 572. After deciding on the time to leave Lian City for Fuli mountain range, Chu Qingyan instructed Xining to prepare the necessary items for the trip. It would take at least 7 days to travel from Lian City to Fuli mountain range, so there were many necessary items to bring along. While Xining was tidying up the room, Chu Qingyan left the room and headed to Qing Yanluo's garden. After a day's rest, she had regained her strength. Since she would be leaving Lian City for a period of time, she wanted to greet Yan Luo. However, when she reached Qing Yanluo's room and was about to knock on the door, she saw Qing Yanluo packing. She forgot to knock on the door and went straight in. She asked in surprise, "Sister Yanluo, where are you going?" When Qing Yanluo saw her, she continued what she was doing. "I'm going back to the medical center. Junior brother is sick. The season has changed recently and many people are sick. The medical center is too busy, so I have to go back." Chu Qingyan nodded and sat down on a chair. "When will you be back?" Qing Yanluo paused and thought for a moment. "I'm not sure. I don't have any clue about your father's symptoms. The previous methods didn't work. When I go back, I'll check some medical books to see if there are any other methods. Thank you for your hard work." Chu Qingyan thanked her sincerely. All these years, she had devoted herself to studying her father's illness. Although those methods didn't work, she had spent a lot of energy. "We're close friends, so why are you being so polite? If it weren't for you and His Highness, I'm afraid our medical center would have been unable to make ends meet. Their medical center wasn't established for the purpose of making a profit. They often provided free treatment and medicine to the people. It was all thanks to the support of Xiao Su and the little girl that they were able to survive these years. Therefore, the reason why she did her best to treat Chu Machin's father and spent so many years staying here was because they treated her as a good friend. Chu Qingyan chuckled. Indeed, it's not our style to thank each other. By the way, do you need to bring anything to the medical center? Do you need financial, material, and manpower support? Cheng Yenluo looked at her doubtfully. I can understand financial and material support, but what the hell is manpower support? If you don't have enough people, we'll give you more. Chu Qingyan winked and giggled. Who is it? She had already guessed who it was. Ethereal, our Shaolai Cavalry's #1 doctor. His hands are miraculous, and his medical skills are superb. He can bring the dead back to life, and he is also handsome and confident. What do you think of his skills? Chu Qingyan strongly recommended. Cheng Yenluo rolled her eyes. Cut it out. Chu Qingyan followed behind her, unwilling to give up. You don't like this, but there are other advantages. For example, I'll wash your clothes and cook for you on the road, lead your horse and guard you, eat, drink, and play. What about this? Cheng Yenluo took a box of medicine from the cabinet and turned around to put it in her bag. She found her words funny. I won't believe it even if you beat me to death. Murongju was such a proud person. Would he do this for a woman? He didn't do it in the past, so how could he do it now? Cheng Yenluo shook her head and tied a knot in her bag. She was almost done packing. When are you leaving? Seeing that she couldn't persuade her, Chu Qingyan gave up. She looked around her room and found that everything had been put away, so she asked. I can leave after lunch. Cheng Yenluo patted the bag on the table, thinking if there was anything else she hadn't brought with her. Okay, then I'll see you off in the afternoon. Chu Qingyan nodded. No, I'll be back in a while, so you don't have to see me off. Cheng Yenluo shook her head. Then she seemed to think of something. By the way, infectious diseases like the plague are prone to break out in spring. You should be careful. Chu Qingyan answered seriously, I'll remember. After lunch, Cheng Yenluo carried her bag and was about to walk out of the room. She looked down and saw a figure stretched out on the tiles by the sunlight. She stopped and slowly looked up. Ethereal was standing in front of her against the light. Are you coming to see me off? She asked in a relaxed tone with a smile. Ethereal's eyes fell on her face greedily. Her bright and beautiful face had a kind of natural elegance. When she smiled, there was a faint tranquility in her expression. No. He shook his head. Then? Cheng Yenluo was confused. If there was any improvement in their relationship over the past few years, it was that they were no longer strangers. They were just strangers in love. They greeted each other when they met, drank tea, and talked about medicine. They could face these things calmly. I'll go back with you, he replied seriously. Cheng Yenluo was stunned, but he didn't seem to be faking it. She couldn't help but smile. Go back with me. What can you do? I think my medical skills are not bad. I can help with the diagnosis and treatment. Ethereal looked into her eyes and said slowly. Cheng Yenluo raised her eyebrows. The medical center doesn't have that much business. I alone am enough. My junior brothers are here too. I can wash your clothes and cook for you on the way. I can lead the horse and guard you. I can eat, drink, and play. I can do whatever you want. What do you think? Ethereal smiled. He wasn't disheartened by her rejection just now. Why did these words sound so familiar to Cheng Yenluo? And she felt that he seemed to be flirting with her in a serious tone. Her face couldn't help but darken. No need. Thank you for your kindness. Cheng Yenluo threw the bundle in her hand over her shoulder and prepared to walk around him. But as soon as she took a step forward, another wall appeared in front of her, and it was a white and shiny human wall. What do you mean by this? Cheng Yenluo stood still, looking displeased. I'll go back with you. Recently, there have been a lot of robberies on the road. I'm worried. Ethereal looked defeated. Why didn't the young princess consort's methods work? Cheng Yanlua's expression changed from displeasure to seriousness. She raised her head and looked into his eyes. They were deep and unfathomable, like an ancient pool. A few years ago, there was a plague in Gao City. Although I don't know how it ended, I heard that your master will be going to Fuli mountain range in 2 days. He might pass by there. Ethereal froze on the spot. So, are you sure you still want to go with me? Initially, she still had some hope in her heart. But when she saw the struggle in his eyes, her hope was extinguished. I'll send someone to protect you. He lowered his eyebrows and said. There's no need. I've climbed the mountain in the middle of the night to gather herbs and spend a night in a beast's den. What haven't I experienced? I've been alone for so many years. It's no big deal. Cheng Yanluo looked away when she said this. She felt her throat tighten. She didn't want to look at him anymore. She nodded at him, walked past him, and left the courtyard. 10 years ago, you left me because of your responsibilities. Can I still expect you to be like you 10 years later? Ethereal clenched the bundle on his shoulder. His eyes were filled with sorrow. I'm sorry, Xiao Yan. Chapter 573. Chu Qingyan, who was standing in the corridor, saw the two of them brushing past each other. Her heart was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. She immediately walked in front of Ethereal and said resentfully, What are you standing there for? Hurry up and chase after them. But, Ethereal's eyes were filled with hesitation. Aren't you and Master going to Fuli mountain range? This subordinate, there are no buts and no obligations. Your main task now is to chase after the person you want to chase. Your Highness isn't made of paper and won't get hurt so easily. If his safety requires you to sacrifice your happiness, I don't think he'll agree to it. Go, this is an order. Chu Qingyan couldn't bear to see him dilly-dallying and immediately urged him to go. Ethereal nodded fiercely and immediately chased after them. Chu Qingyan watched Ethereal's departing figure and sighed in relief. You two have to work hard. In the blink of an eye, Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su were also about to set off. Lu Yu said in the letter that the ore needed more time to be studied, so they didn't need to be too anxious. Thus, Xiao Su planned to take Chu Qingyan to slowly tour the area and take a look at the changes in the fief and the people's situation. Because they didn't need to rush, Chu Qingyan and the others dressed up as visiting relatives. When they just set foot on the road, the continuous spring rain of March finally stopped and the sky cleared up. Chu Qingyan felt that her face was too eye-catching and was afraid of being recognized, so she put on the silver mask that Xiao Su used to wear. She wore a tight outfit and instantly transformed into a silver-masked youth. She felt that she was so handsome. However, Xining and the others didn't feel that way at all. This made her feel very frustrated. Chu Qingyan rode her horse and walked in the group, while Xiao Su wore a white curtain hat and sat in the carriage. Chu Qingyan became his follower and he was the main person. However, Chu Qingyan didn't mind at all. The spring breeze in March was warm and the weather was very warm. It was very suitable for traveling. As a matter of fact, not long after they left, they ran into two groups of people. Little brother, where are you going? One of them shouted loudly at Chu Qingyan. It seemed like she was treating her as the person in charge of their team. Chu Qingyan looked at this group of people. Although their clothes were not luxurious, they were not ordinary either. There were 2 carriages and 3 or 4 servants. She replied with a smile, Our young master wants to take advantage of the spring scenery to go out for a walk. He doesn't have any special plans to go anywhere. Where are you going? We're going to Li City to visit our family. Our madam and 2 young ladies are sitting inside. The person who shouted just now rode a horse to Chu Qingyan's side. Although he was in his 30s, he looked very simple and honest. Seeing that he was honest, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but nod. We will also pass by Li City. That's great. We can travel together and take care of each other. I heard that there will be a lot of bandits along the way. The more people we have, the more courage we will have. After Lu Shi finished speaking, he asked happily, My name is Lu Shi. How should I address you? Chu Qingyan readily replied, This one is Chu Qingyan. Lu Shi looked at the youth in front of him. Although he was wearing a mask, he gave people a very comfortable feeling. His temperament was very noble and he was very approachable. He started chatting with him. Chu Qingyan found out from him that their master's surname was Lu, and he was a steward. This group of people was going to Li City to seek refuge with their master. Their master was working as an advisor in the county government of Li City this year. As soon as he settled down, he asked his madam to move the family to Li City. Chu Qingyan also found out that the master of the other group of people was surnamed Yang. They were going to Fu City and would also pass by Li City. However, Lu Shi expressed that he didn't know why they were going to Fu City. Because he vaguely felt that this group of people didn't seem to be very friendly, Lu Shi didn't ask for a snub. Lu Shi said a few words before he was called back by his master. Chu Qingyan could tell that compared to the lively Lu family, the Yang family was more silent. They were dressed gorgeously, and they also had 2 carriages with more than 10 guards. The carriages were very spacious, and she could vaguely hear the girls talking inside. Chu Qingyan thought that the people inside should also be women, but each of them had their chins slightly raised, as if they were very disdainful of the 2 groups of people beside them. However, this had nothing to do with her. In any case, this group of people was going on the road. It didn't matter if there were more people on the road. They didn't interfere with each other. After walking for an entire morning, because this road was in the middle of nowhere, they could only find a spacious place to rest and have lunch. Thus, the 3 groups of people coincidentally stopped at the roadside lawn. The people in the carriages also came out one after another. Because the 2 groups of people in front were walking at the front, Chu Qingyan saw the Lu family of 3, Madame Lu and the 2 young ladies. Madame Lu was wearing a Rui pattern dress. Her face was full of happiness, and her figure was a little plump. She looked to be in her 30s or 40s. Beside her were 2 young ladies. One of them was wearing a colorful flying flower dress. Her appearance was delicate and pretty. The other was wearing a standing water pattern dress. Her appearance was beautiful. The 2 young ladies were around 13 or 14 years old. Chu Qingyan's gaze fell on the other side. Madame Yang was wearing a white gauze dress. Her skin and figure were well maintained. She looked to be in her early 30s. Beside her was a young lady around 14 or 15 years old. That young lady was wearing a colorful 8-jewel standing water pattern dress. Her appearance was more outstanding than the 2 young ladies of the Lu family. Behind this young lady was a young lady with her head lowered. Her clothes were not as exquisite as the previous young lady. Her clothes were not old or new, and she looked a little timid. After observing, Chu Qingyan walked to the side of the carriage and waited for the people inside to get off. Thus, when Xiao Su lifted the curtain of the carriage, he saw a white wrist in front of him. He couldn't help but frown and look at her. He only heard her say, "The people outside all think that I am your servant. Why don't we put on a show until the end?" Xiao Su smiled and obediently put his hand on the back of her hand. Then, they got off the carriage. Although they were the last to get off the carriage, Turan and the others had already led the carriage to the side and tied it up. The ground was also covered with a thick layer of cloth. In order to avoid being too conspicuous, they didn't take out the folding chairs and tables. Instead, they took out the dry food that they had prepared this morning. So when the other 2 groups of people sat down, Chu Qingyan and the others had already started eating lunch. Chu Qingyan chewed on a sesame seed cake. Out of the corner of her eyes, she saw that the Yang family took out a few delicately made food boxes. Then, she took out the pastries from the boxes. It could be seen that they were all food that looked good. Chu Qingyan politely declined the food that Lu Shi sent over. She smiled and said that she had brought a lot. Halfway through lunch, the young lady of the Yang family said something to Madame Yang. Madame Yang looked at Chu Qingyan and the others. Then, she called her bodyguard and said something. Then, the bodyguard walked towards Chu Qingyan and the others. Chapter 574. That guard walked straight in front of Xiao Su, his tone carrying a bit of arrogance as he said, "We are the Yang family of Father City. Our madam heard that you will be passing through Li City, and since it's on the way, why don't we travel together? If we meet any bandits, we can take care of each other." Chu Qingyan blinked as she looked at that guard. Who gave him the guts to actually bypass her, the manager, and directly look for her family's big ice block? If her family's big ice block froze someone to death, she wouldn't be responsible. After that guard finished speaking, he found that the person in front of him didn't pay any attention to him at all and just continued to sip his tea. The guard was a bit impatient. Their madam had sent him over to inquire, which meant that she thought highly of them, but he didn't expect that he would receive this kind of treatment. Just as he was about to make a sarcastic remark, the person who was immersed in his tea slowly raised his head. Although he was wearing a veil, he could faintly feel the sharp gaze under the white veil. That guard couldn't help but take a step back. Even if the person in front of him was sitting and he obviously had the advantage when he was standing, he still felt that he was a bit shorter. Chu Qingyan saw that the bodyguard had been defeated by the big block of ice, so she slowly walked over. This big brother, since it's on the way, traveling together isn't a bad idea. This one will agree on behalf of our young master, but our young master doesn't care about matters. If there's anything in the future, you can directly communicate with this one. Chu Qingyan held back her laughter and expressed her goodwill. Since they were in the same line of work, it was always good to have one more friend. That guard saw that Chu Qingyan gave him a way out and immediately stepped down, but his tone carried a bit of anger. "If there's any trouble that you can't solve, you can look for our Yang family. Goodbye." After saying that, without waiting for Chu Qingyan's response, that guard left in high spirits. Like servant, like master, like master. It's fine if we don't make friends with this Yang family. Turin said from the side. That's right, it seems like we have to go up and trouble them. Do we look so weak that we can be bullied at will? Hualing pretended to be weak as he twisted his body, speaking in a very disgusted manner. Chu Qingyan was amused by the words of these two people. Turin and Hualing's words were indeed reasonable. Just now, the Yang family had sent a guard to contact them. It should have been because they saw Turin and the others' strong bodies, quick work, and well-trained training. They thought of the dangers along the way, so they took the initiative to speak. However, that guard's face was filled with contempt, making people unable to get close to the Yang family. The Lu family was more pleasing to the eye, so Chu Qingyan asked Jean Xian to send some Rigiamos to the Lu family. Reciprocity was the only way to maintain a lasting relationship. After the items were delivered, Lu Shibian came over to express his gratitude. "Little brother Chu, my family's madam and young lady asked me to come and thank you. They said the Rigiamo was delicious." "Thank you for your kindness," Lu Shi said with a silly smile. Chu Qingyan waved his hand. "It's good that you like it, there's no need to be polite." With 3 groups of people traveling together, Chu Qingyan only sent things to the Lu family and didn't give anything to the Yang family. When the Yang family saw this difference in treatment, their faces became ugly. Chu Qingyan rubbed his nose. "Look at how you guys are eating so delicately, how could you look down on our crude Rigiamos?" However, Chu Qingyan had seen many people like this before. They felt that their presence was too strong, like they would be cheered and applauded when they walked on the road. "That's right, you guys keep talking about bandits. What is that about?" Although Chu Qingyan had never taken this matter to heart, when she heard the Lu family and the Yang family mention it, she couldn't help but take it seriously. When Lu Shi heard her question, he explained, "This road has never been peaceful to begin with. In the past, there was no one to manage it, so the people who did not have a good harvest and could not afford to pay taxes formed factions and became bandits. I heard that 7 years ago, these people even robbed official silver. In the past 2 years, these people have become even bolder. In broad daylight, they even dare to come out and kidnap passing merchants and passers-by. This humble one heard that a month ago, a family was kidnapped and murdered on the road ahead. Even a 3-year-old child was not spared. Not only did they rob money, but they also took women. All the pretty girls were kidnapped and brought to the mountain stronghold." Lu Shi sighed, "So this time, my family's madam had no choice but to hire a few guards, hoping that they can pass through this road safely." Chu Qingyan heard Lu Shi's words and frowned deeply. The authorities don't care. Why would the authorities care about this? Rumor has it that the officials are colluding with the bandits. Who knows? Lu Shi shook his head, looking resigned to his fate. After Lu Shi left, Chu Qingyan returned to Xiao Su's side and repeated Lu Shi's words. Then, she said, "Big Ice Cube, why didn't we know about this?" None of the subordinates reported it either. The area from Lianqing to Fuli mountain range is vast but sparsely populated. The land is barren and there isn't much harvest. So, the imperial court rarely spends their energy here. When I came here, those officials thought that I was sent here because I lost my power, so they didn't take me seriously. It's not impossible that they neglected their duties, didn't report what they knew, or colluded with the bandits. Xiao Su's tone was indifferent. The people he brought with him had basically been on the battlefield. They were still lacking in political management, so there were these loopholes. Then what should we do now? Chu Qingyan understood the meaning in his words. It was as if a tiger that had fallen to the plains would be bullied by dogs. Regardless of whether or not these local officials were colluding with the bandits, it was a fact that they didn't take Big Ice Cube, the king of the fief, seriously. Let's wait and see. If we encounter any bandits, we'll deal with them. We'll deal with them when we reach Li City. Xiao Su pointed at the rujiamo in front of him, indicating for her to eat. Chu Qingyan nodded, took the rujiamo, and put it in her mouth. In fact, she very much hoped to encounter these bandits. Then, she could take care of them in one fell swoop to prevent future trouble for the people. After lunch and a short rest, the 3 groups set off at the same time. Because Chu Qingyan's group was relatively close to the Lu families, Lu Shi came over again. Chu Qingyan felt that this person was quite talkative and as honest as his name, so she started chatting with him. After Lu Shi talked about a few interesting things about the farmers, he suddenly spoke in a small voice. "Little brother Chu, your family's young master seems to be a man of few words and doesn't seem easy to get along with, but his temperament is very good. He seems like the young master of an influential family." Lu Shi rubbed his head as he spoke honestly. Chu Qingyan smiled when she heard this. He really doesn't talk much, but he isn't hard to get along with. Her family's Big Ice Cube was a bit quiet, but that depended on the person. If it was her, he wouldn't stop talking once he started lecturing her. At this time, Turan suddenly came over to say that his master was looking for her. Chu Qingyan nodded to Lu Shi before riding her horse back to the carriage. She asked, "What is it, Big Ice Cube?" "Stay by the carriage. Don't keep talking to unimportant people." The person in the carriage spoke in a somewhat depressed tone. Chu Qingyan tilted her head to look at Hualing in confusion. What was with His Highness? Hualing spread his hands. He might be jealous. That shouldn't be possible. Lu Shi was old enough to be her father. Moreover, she was dressed as a man, alright? She didn't understand Big Ice Cube's world. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.